Hello everyone, welcome to Superhero Rewatch. I'm Captain Logan. Joining me this time is the Day Ghost. Hi Austin. How's it
Hey,
going,
I'm a
man?
rewinder in training today.
Austin, thanks so much for joining me. So I've got somebody to bounce off of. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try something a little bit new. We already do lots of commentaries on Geekvolution on the YouTube channel, of course. But I wanted to do something with Superhero Rewind every few episodes or so and pick one that, pick a movie that I have done recently that's fresh in my mind and do kind of a fine-tooth comb sort of commentary. And sometimes these might be things that I have done commentaries on in the past, but I'll have a bit of a different perspective, and it'll be more recent and, like I said, fresher in my mind. So I'll have kind of more details and things to discuss. And this time I wanted to do Apocalypse because we only have one commentary of this on the channel right now. It's an old Marvel Mania commentary, and I think it worked out kind of weird. Austin, you said that video was kind of screwed up, and I cannot remember what happened with it. That was the first round I did with Eric of those.
There was like a point where I would go and visit my mom, and I'd be like at night when I was like in my room, I'd be like, I'll watch like a Marvel Mania as I go to sleep. And for whatever reason, I always gravitated to Apocalypse. And there's a point in that Marvel Mania where it just stops, and there's like 15 minutes of nothing. And then when it comes back on, it's like 8 minutes earlier or something. It's really wonky.
We should have gone back and fixed that. I didn't even remember that happened.
Yeah, I always forgot, and I watched that commentary 4 times, and each time I was like, what the hell? What's going on?
Hopefully this will be an unbroken 2.5 hours that you can actually sync with us and watch the entire film. I had planned on doing these by myself initially, and Austin graciously suggested that it might be cool to have somebody else to pop on that I could talk with instead of having to talk by myself for 2.5 hours. So I want to say thanks to Austin a bunch for rendering your services today.
Yeah, no, of course, anytime. Well, we were supposed to do was it Batman versus Ninja Turtles? That was what you wanted to do first before the Apocalypse thing, when I mentioned that commentary. I think that's the one you wanted to start with.
That was originally my idea, and then you mentioned that turned out the way it did, and I'm sure a lot of people will be more interested in this since that turned out weird, but also since that commentary that rewind ended up being one of the longest rewinds I've written, and there were even quite a few more things I could have talked about that hopefully will come up tonight with this watch. So anyway, really glad to have Austin here, and let's go ahead and get into it. If you want to watch it with us, and we encourage you to do that, get out your Blu-ray, your DVD, or go to Disney Plus. At this moment in time, this is of course on Disney Plus. Like most of, well, I guess they only have a couple of the X-Men movies right now. I'm sure eventually they'll have.
In Canada they have all of them, but Dark Phoenix. They added them back in February, March last year. Yeah, that and the Fantastic Four movies.
Crazy. Well, we don't have all that yet, and so that's probably just because of different contracts and.
Well, yeah, of course.
But anyway, so get past all the menus to timestamp 0. Get ready to press play, and we'll get right into it. If you are listening on the podcast feed right now, this will be the thing that I'll try to post whenever I've got either a week that I'm not able to get a rewind up, or whenever I'm doing a rewind of a different ilk, because the Superhero Rewind podcast is only superhero movies, and all the Rewind Uniteds and science fiction rewinds requested things will show up just on the YouTube channel. So just so you know, you might want to follow the YouTube channel, see if there's another kind of review there, but I want to try to keep something on the podcast feed weekly if at all possible. So occasionally you'll see a commentary like this on something that I have talked about recently. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Here we go. Well, and I also wanted to say, if you're watching on the podcast feed, we are live and in color on the YouTube channel. So if you want to see our lovely faces, you can watch it that way.
We're brought to you in Technicolor.
I also... we're like the 3rd episode of WandaVision. I also...
We're like the 60s Spider-Man where it comes right at you.
I also will, exactly. I also will occasionally, or possibly most of the time, I'm not sure yet, after this one, start opening this up to Patreon to help us decide which of the last few rewinds that we'll do this with. But we decided to go ahead and start with Apocalypse, and if you are a patron, you might get to help me decide that next time. Patreon.com/geekvolution, that lets you that lets you put in a tweet-length review for rewinds and also get early ones. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. So this is one of those really sad, bittersweet things for me, Austin, where I get that great, cool thing that we did at the beginning of Days of Future Past. We get the Fox logo, and gets to the end, and it's so well orchestrated. Da-da-da-da-da! Da-da-da-da! You're like, yes! Da-da-da-da!
You get the X holding off?
You get the X, yeah, it's the best! And then very quickly my heart sinks where I'm like, this is not gonna be that experience, is it? And I was not like immediately taken by this, you know, from the beginning. It's not like I expected after this opening Egyptian scene that we were in trouble or anything, but already something felt a little bit off to me in the theater, where I was going, I just don't think that Singer's doing enough to communicate everything. I wasn't sure why I was supposed to care about certain things and stuff, and hoped that it would become a little clearer as the movie went on, but the vibe I get right from the start is this is just more of the same. It's Singer. He gets the X-Men franchise again. He's just gonna keep going back and doing the same stuff that he always did before. I feel like even not having new blood, even it being Bryan Singer directing, it was a misstep not to immediately carve out a new tone for this. I didn't need McAvoy coming in and doing the standard Patrick Stewart Xavier speech thing again. It's like, okay, it feels kind of formulaic. You're not going your own way. You're not really paving over. It's just this tone again. And if it was a really good story and the movie was great, I'm sure I wouldn't complain about that as much.
Yeah, well, and there's quite a few things in this movie that are pretty formulaic that we'll get to.
And not just for X-Men movies, but just superhero movies at large.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, well, I think going to your tone thing, probably what hurt it, too, was they got a bunch of the writers from X2 to come back and work on the story for this. We're already going back to those people that did it in the first place. I
guess I didn't even realize that. I had not looked real deep at writing credits.
I didn't know that until today. Yeah, two of the writers, and Singer and Kinberg worked on the story for this movie.
Yeah, I always think of this as just kind of Kinberg's baby and Singer directing and maybe taking more credit for certain things than he really ought to. Although it's kind of odd to take credit for things that I thought just didn't work at all. I don't know if you've listened to his commentary yet, Austin, but he talks about this like he thinks he's made a near masterpiece, and it's very strange.
Oh my god.
I talked about this a lot in the Rewind. It is one of the weirdest commentaries I've ever listened to.
Yeah, just from what you told me, it sounds like it.
He sounds very out of touch. He doesn't sound the way he used to on older commentaries. He's a different person at that point, and it's kind of sad. He's lost his zeal, he's lost his energy, and some of that might be, and to be fair, his commentary is not crazy, if memory serves, in Days of Future Past, and I think there might have been a commentary for both versions of that even. But I don't know, he sounds tired, he sounds almost like he's been smoking for 20 years, like, he sounds like he's aged a lot, it's weird.
Yeah, well, when I was reading into, like, the story stuff, the article that I found where it said like that they hired the two of the X2 writers to work on it, that article came out months before Days of Future Past even came out. So he was already like deep into writing this while like in editing for that film, or post-production anyways.
They rushed it so hard, and I can't think of any good reason that they couldn't have taken another year on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's
especially
the Sony moving away.
There's more time between First Class and Days of Future Past.
Yeah, because I think there's 3 years between those two. so that it had that extra year.
I'm going to try not to just repeat everything I said in the rewind. We've got 2.5 hours here to kill. And I'm going to try to comment on some things that I didn't get around to last time, but, or in that written review, rather. But this, but it was, one of the things that made it seem very strange that you would rush it 2 years later is that it was, Days of Future Past is such a behemoth, not just in scope, but in the coordination of getting all of those actors and everybody together to make the thing. I would think that everybody would need some time to breathe after that.
Yeah. Well, and just here, like what we're getting to right now, it's just so needlessly violent. I don't know. Do you have that? Like Days of Future Past has this, but it's, you know, this dark future. Like here we're just in Egypt, and it's just so graphic. Like,
it's almost like Singer's trying to match Vaughn, and like he doesn't seem interested in that in anything but the violence.
Yeah.
But it's like the X-Men movies have gotten kind of known now after First Class for being willing to go a little harder edged and push the PG-13 envelope and be more for adults than for kids. And so it's almost like he's got that green light now. Now, to be fair, Singer did some of that stuff early on, but he didn't go nearly as far as Vaughn did with the coin through the head and all of that stuff. And in Days of Future Past, he's got things like the Sentinel, you know, stepping on Iceman's head and shattering it, and things like that. But
that
like you
stuff
said,
all feels like it's with the story. While this is just kind of we're violent, we're dark. This is what these movies are.
And that set when we were as violent as we were in that apocalyptic future, not to be confused with this not apocalyptic present, but with apocalypse, because we don't actually get to an age of anything.
Past.
At least it doesn't have age in the title. That was the thing I meant to talk about in the rewind. That I think the only reason this isn't called Age of Apocalypse is because Ultron got to it first, but neither of them really would make a lot of sense to have age in the title. But first of all, that set a tone for that piece and for that dark future, and because you're oscillating back and forth between the future and the present, it's easier to kind of balance those tones, because, you know, you're in a 1973 that looks more or less like the one that like the real one here, and also you already did an opening about how messed up that future was. Like, Xavier's speech in that is, look how, you know, horrible the future is. Is it really set? We set that tone. We were ready for violence, right? And this just comes out swinging, and then we move, you know, through this opening sequence into the present with these really kind of god-awful graphics. I don't like this opening at all.
I love the idea of this, of going through time. It looks awful.
It looks awful.
I think the CGI
I don't expect
in this
fully
film
realistic CG necessarily, but it's bad.
But I think this film is very shoddy CGI through most of it, honestly. Like, there's places where, like, it's good, obviously, but there's quite a bit of shoddy CGI work in this movie.
So that's that bit where we see the swastika with the Marvel logo in front of it. And Singer more than implies in the commentary that he did that on purpose.
Yeah,
he was like, we just happen to have the Marvel logo behind a swastika. It's like, good God!
Somebody's happy to be making an X-Men film.
There's also something really self-indulgent about this movie that I couldn't put my finger on until I listened to the commentary. And I'll try not to talk about another commentary the whole time we're doing this. But Singer spends a lot of time, and Kinberg too, just pointing out, like, cool things they put in scenes for themselves. It really, and we get some of that in some of the earlier movies, but it all feels like Easter eggs and not the point, not the reason that we made that we were you know, here and amusing ourselves. In the commentary for this, it kind of reads like Singer and Kinberg both are kind of bored and tired of making these, and they've got to do something to keep it interesting for themselves.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, it's crazy.
this actress is in some 80s movie that I've never seen that they're like obsessed with, and
Oh, weird.
and they're like, oh, this could you believe we put this actress here? And I'm like, I don't know who that is. And
Yeah, she's not ringing a bell to me. I'm not sure who that is.
or maybe it was even a 70s thing, I can't remember. But anyway, so that whole scene is basically just there to give you exposition about the end of last movie, or at least that's how it reads, like it's recapping. What it's really doing is retconning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like this whole movie is is set on a bed of conveniences and contrivances, and in the commentary again, Singer kind of pats himself on the back for finding ways around things seeming too contrived, and I feel really insulted when he starts talking about that, where he's like, I'm getting ahead of us, but when we get to that bit where you have what seems like an earthquake, and Magneto is working at that factory, he's patting himself on the back for the fact that Apocalypse is what caused that. So he's like, isn't it great that it's not just this random thing that happens, that it's connected to the Apocalypse thing? And I'm like, well, okay, I guess, but it is convenient that that's not happening all over the world. Like, it happens to be in the line of sight of that whole thing. But also, it still seems too easy and kind of throwaway, and he's ignoring all the other things that really are just super convenient timing. And as I always say, it's not like coincidences don't happen, but what are the odds that at almost exactly the same time as, like, these things just line up too easily. Almost exactly the same time as Apocalypse is being unearthed, you also have Cyclops discovering his ability for the very first time and going to the mansion. Why couldn't he already be there?
Yeah.
Or why couldn't he be dealing with, sort of like Rogue did at the beginning of X-Men? Like, he's been dealing with the sight thing for a while. He doesn't know what to do about it. Now he goes to the mansion. It's too many weirdly convenient timed things.
Yeah, well, and that's the job of a director, is to hide that stuff. It's a magic trick.
Well, and that's the job of the writer as well, certainly.
Oh, well, yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I mean, both of those guys are to blame for this movie.
Okay,
Certainly.
so 2 out of 3 of the main characters in this scene are completely pointless, don't need to be in this film. And the third one is manufactured to be way more important than she has any business being. Not that this shouldn't be Mystique's movie, because it should. If this was a proper trilogy, beginning with First Class, you do indeed, like I said in the rewind, have a triad. And the first movie was about Magneto. The second movie was about Xavier. This absolutely should be about Mystique. Now, the second movie is somewhat about Mystique as well. She does have a character arc, but it's a lot more about facilitating Xavier than anything. And everything about where we go with this is a complete misstep. I don't know what story you tell with her. I think it might have been smarter, actually, to make... Am I right about this? It might have been smarter to make her one of the Horsemen and have her have a character arc about that, and then she's the person that has some kind of change of heart at the end or something. I can't think of anything brilliant, but I like her as a Horseman a lot more than I do Magneto.
Yeah, I guess the only danger you run with that is kind of repeating her arc a little bit with Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
I like your idea in the rewind of her... her dying in this movie as opposed to the next one.
Well, I was mostly just being facetious because I think her...
Well, yeah.
Because I think Jennifer Lawrence is terrible in this. So I only wanted her to die so I didn't have to watch her anymore. But yeah...
Also, when you get to that scene with her in Apocalypse, I think that scene plays better if she does... Like, I was thinking
she could make the sacrifice that has something to do with Magneto changing, right? Or, like...
Yeah. Well, and I was getting vibes of the Loki scene in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Where she walks up and she slits Apocalypse's throat and then he chokes her out. But then we don't kill her. Yeah.
See, I just don't need her to be a full-on hero, and I'm not saying that can't work, but you know what would have been a lot more... I'll tell you what I really want, because I was just sort of grasping at straws, but as we're talking, I'm remembering thoughts I've had before. Something is... one thing I think we could have done with her that would have made a lot more sense is have her in the last 10 years be the one that's been developing the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So she's going around and helping mutants, but building, kind of this army in the background. She's kind of becoming the new Magneto. And maybe she wouldn't go as far as Magneto does, but just because she saves Trask at the end of last movie wouldn't suddenly put her on, the path of righteousness necessarily.
Yeah, she doesn't have a different ideology all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that's not to say that that's exactly what we're doing here. She has this, turn that I just don't buy, and especially because we deleted the scene that got her there, and it wasn't a great scene, but at the end, she's like, I'm going to leave the X-Men now, just because Xavier has a line where he's repeating the stupid thing Wolverine said last movie with the whole, Storm, Scott Jean thing. But I kind of so like I'm fine with the idea that she doesn't think that things are as hunky-dory with humans and mutants as Xavier does. I don't know how Xavier got to that exactly, but like I'm okay with her being like there's dirty work that needs to be done, or there's gritty work, I should say, that needs to be done. Like nobody's actually going to bat for these mutants. But I would think that would make her more jaded about humanity. Like maybe even a little bit more than she is. I don't know. The bigger issue, of course, is just that anybody took you're a hero from the end of last movie. I don't understand that.
No, it's ridiculous. You literally have to cut out the scene where she turns around and points a gun at Trask. Like, that's the only way to make that work, is you have to cut that scene off.
And it feels like we've basically retconned that. It feels like that's pretty much what we did. We cut that scene.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it feels like if they had to do it over again, they would have cut that scene.
Yeah, well, and it's not the only thing where you get that vibe from, because obviously you get that with Stryker as well.
Yeah, and Stryker is still a completely different character who's from X2, who's motivated by nothing as far as I understand.
Well, and I was thinking about it this time because I watched all three today.
Hang on, I gotta talk about this. So here's the Summers parents, and they look like they're, I don't know, 50, 55, and their son has to be somewhere like between 36 and 42. That's a place where they cut a scene that got us to the car. It's not a great scene, but I wish it wasn't gone. It still didn't go far enough. He convinces Scott to go to the mansion, and here he just begrudgingly is in the car. Okay. But we don't have enough downtime with these characters, and you don't have a real introduction for Scott beyond being in the school in the first place. Like, I like him actually talking to his brother for a little bit before we, break them up and then kill Alex off. But the way the deleted scene ends is still weird because he's like, yeah, I'm not going to go to that place. And then Alex is like, you really need to go to that place. And then they're in the car. I mean, we didn't do enough to get us there.
It's like, well, when you put it that way.
This is one of the many places where we're playing this like a prequel as opposed to a sequel and making a big deal out of this is how these characters met, even though we're already paving over a timeline. So as I said in the rewind, it's that Star Trek 09 thing where we're simultaneously supposed to be enjoying going a totally different way and going, oh, this is how it happened. Cool.
Yeah, well, I think that scene's just awful. I don't know. Their performances are really wonky in that. Like, I think their performances get better after that scene. I still don't really love their Jean. Their Cyclops is okay.
I think he's good casting. I think he could have really grown into that role.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is none of them are really given the time to shine.
This is a scene that's cut way down, and the beginning of it is necessary thematically, and it sucks that it's gone. That's the thing I meant to write about and I'd forgotten, where he is quoting the Once and Future King, and he's quoting from the author, where he says, and this is this other crazy deleted scene with Jean that I talked about in that video. She shoots an arrow at kids, and then and then is like, oh no, it's fine, I've got my telekinesis, I can move it over here, and then 5 minutes later is talking about how she doesn't know how to control her powers. It's insane.
Well, then later she'll be like, oh, everybody hates me. They all think I'm like a freak.
But he's
wonder
quoting,
why.
He's quoting the author with Once and Future King, and he's talking about how we, in order to move forward, we have to kill the past, and that is thematically connected to Apocalypse, and they've axed it.
Oh wow.
What's weird is all the foreshadowing that is still here, and also some of it that was taken out of the movie, is not just foreshadowing the conflict, but also the resolution of the conflict. So all of the foreshadowing moments are Apocalypse is going to lose.
I love in the scene with Cyclops where they get him to like try out his vision, where Professor X is standing right in front of him. You'd think you'd want to maybe go behind him, you know. He trained Havoc. He's a little smarter with Havoc.
I would think you would have so many security protocols.
No, absolutely. So here we're just doing her introduction scene from First Class, where she walks in onto like Shaw's like when you first see Shaw in the 60s. And that's
was she
what we're doing.
In disguise there?
Yes, because she's wearing like a bikini because she's sneaking into the strip club.
I had forgotten all about that. Oh, that's right, because she has to use some assets the CIA didn't give her.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's like almost the exact same scene.
Singer likes to do that, though, and sometimes it plays as kind of cool paralleling in repetition. Like, I don't mind that. Maybe I should. I don't know. I've never minded this. That, like, you know, in a lot of movies, Mystique will have that scene where she goes and like seduces an older guy and gets what she needs from him. Like sometimes that kind of thing just plays as here's a strategy these characters use, or the fact that Mystique like speaks a million accents and she's constant, or speaks a million languages, and she'll be being a chameleon in a different form, speaking another language, and then she goes and pretends like she's gonna have sex with a guy and then gets whatever she needs from him. I bet that's what he thinks he's doing with Moira here.
Yeah, well, with Mystique, I think that makes more sense. Here it feels more formulaic, where it's like, okay, we need the heroes to find out about the villain. Moira walks in on them.
I had this thought after, and this is not exactly the same situation, but I had this thought after writing the Rewind, and I wish I'd gotten this in there. Moira, I forget the name of that actress, but...
it's Rose Byrne.
Thank you. She is basically... the actress that plays April in Ninja Turtles 1 and then Ninja Turtles 3, because she comes back, and I realize that there is an April in 2 played by Paige Turco, and she doesn't come back, but it's like, finally she gets to reprise that role, and they bring her back, and she's in, like, this really weird movie that's not anything like as good as the first one she was in, and it feels like the time has passed, and she's just kind of, like, cutting a paycheck, and... it doesn't need her. Like April doesn't need to be in that movie, and she does not need to be in this movie.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why they brought her back for this movie.
It's almost like they felt like and by they I mean Singer and Kinberg. Mm-hmm. It's like they thought that there was a resolution to First Class that everybody was waiting for that I don't think anybody cared about. Where it's like, well, we can't finish this trilogy before she gets her memories back. I don't think anybody was waiting to see that happen. And then the way it does makes it so much worse.
Well, I was going to say, is this the prequel thing, too? Because that character is in X3.
Yeah.
But then again, they're so wishy-washy on X3.
They're back and forth about what even counts in X3.
Yeah.
Yeah, what matters? So we have to pretend like Angel wasn't in that movie, but we're not supposed to pretend like Shadowcat wasn't.
Yeah.
I guess they don't ever call her Shadowcat, but that was the first thing that came to mind. It's
well, and Trask's in X3 as well.
Yeah,
he's a black guy.
I forgot all about that. Yeah. It was a different Trask, you know. Do they call him Bolivar? Because if they don't call him Bolivar,
I think they do, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Well, I just like the idea that he went from being a black guy in the 2000s to a middle-aged white
no, I
midget
forgot all
in the
about that.
70s.
And that guy is so generic in that movie.
Oh, he's very generic. Well, maybe it was his like grandson. They could be related.
So before this came out, we had all those comparisons, and it was a meme thing, and everybody was making fun of Apocalypse for looking like Ivan Ooze from the '95 Power Rangers movie, and I went to bat for it, and I was like, guys, it's just lighting. Like, let's see it in the context. Let's look at the movie before we jump to conclusions and go, oh my god, they made Apocalypse.
Yeah, he was more purple in that.
A big purple guy, and he's not purple, but the makeup, the prosthetics, is actually closer to that than I thought it would look once we get here. But also, it's weird that all of his energy is in purple. Like, because when we saw those magazines, I was like, okay, I don't know why it's, but maybe it's because he's standing next to Psylocke. Like, I don't know. And then it turns out that all of his energy through this is purple. Like, okay.
Yeah, no, that is weird. So, I also think with Apocalypse, he shot really badly, where I was thinking of like Bane in Rises, where Tom Hardy's not a tall guy, but you never feel that with Bane in Rises.
No, he seems huge.
Yeah, and Apocalypse feels so small in every scene that he's in, where I feel like he's a short guy.
Can I go on record, by the way, since you've now made that comparison, to say that Rises was one of the most disappointing experiences for me in a theater, because I adore that franchise so much, and I thought it was a weird misstep. And a lot of you guys have heard the Rewind. You know my complaints about that. I would watch that all day long over this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, that movie's got missteps, but it's not like terrible.
Not everything about it is wrong. Like, I struggled to think of nice things to say about this film.
Yeah, definitely.
And the one that it got is performances and some decently shot action and stuff. But isn't it weird, all the same mistakes that it has that X3 does? That's the thing I didn't talk a whole lot about, but like, first two movies, mostly decently well integrated CG. There's that shoddy stuff on the train in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, that seems really wonky.
With the Sentinels and the circuitry and like going inside of them and all that. We didn't need that shot, by the way. Why is that there? But
that whole scene is rough.
But this and X-Men 3 both have that thing where nearly all the CG looks terrible.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking about that because you've never seen his Jack and the Beanstalk movie, right?
No.
The CGI is really wonky in that movie, too, and I was thinking about it today of just, I don't think Bryan Singer is a very good director when it comes to CGI, and obviously it's not, most of it works in Days of Future Past, but I think you're seeing a bit more of that in this movie.
I also wonder sometimes with stuff like that, how much of it is like second unit directors.
That's true too, yeah.
And things like that. Sorry, I got distracted. I just had this thought. So she's got all these horses and stuff on this pillow, and it looks, I don't know if it's the same image. Surely it's not, but it's got like a knight on a horse. And then later, when Moira is talking about all the religious stuff and Apocalypse like influencing cultures and stuff.
And she pulls out the Four Horsemen picture?
Yeah, it looks a lot like that.
It's not that picture, but okay. I can see where you're coming from.
It's weirdly similar. Sorry, I stopped everything for that.
Well, is this foreshadowing? Was she supposed to be a horseman?
Well, I guess not, because she isn't.
Well, that's what it is. It's like, oh, is Jean a horseman? We don't know.
It's a red herring, is it? Yeah, it's a phoenix herring.
Well, I switched my point halfway through, but now it's a red herring.
Oh, okay. So, I am confused on this point. What exactly is the future that she's seeing? Because it's clearly not Apocalypse. So, it's almost, and it doesn't seem like these are connected. And so it feels, but it's confusing in the scene because it feels like it's supposed to be because of where the scene is placed. So it ends up being really, again, oddly convenient timing. She sees what she says is the end of the world. She's like, the end of the world is coming. But what we see is images of the Phoenix, which makes you think that she is seeing premonitions of a world that she destroys as the Phoenix. Immediately after we just unearthed the thing called Apocalypse. And we're
Well,
going to
and
be
you
talking
see
about
that
the end of the
one
world with
shot of
Apocalypse. Oh, wait, she did see him in that.
Yeah, you get that shot where he's like, everything they build will fall.
So is the idea supposed to be that what she's seeing is how she saves it? Even though it's like the world on fire? Because the imagery would make you think that it's the Phoenix creating the world on fire. But if you're seeing Apocalypse mixed in that, that's very mixed. It's a mixed message for the future, right? It's like, is it two ends of the world at the same time? Like, I don't know what's happening there. And then somebody in comments the other day...
I have three.
And then somebody in the comments the other day said it had something to do with aliens, and I don't know what that's about.
Whoa. I didn't get that.
I didn't either. I don't know.
Is Apocalypse an alien?
So occasionally you have these jarring things that take you out and make you go, oh, that's right, this is set in the 80s.
Yeah, when you get the Egyptian version of Iran through that one scene.
Yeah, which is great. But I'm thinking more in this scene with the console with all the dials and the change in the helmet and everything with Cerebro.
Well, and Moira's got an Indiana Jones look going on, too.
That's true. And you know what? They could have made this more of an Indiana Jonesy type movie, which would have been better for Singer's directing sensibilities. I didn't think of that until you said that. But he's making, like I said in the rewind, a full-on disaster movie, and he's not the right guy for that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then you get like the full kind of superhero-y action stuff at the end, and he's really not the right guy to be shooting that.
No, and he seems as bored with it as I am, which makes me wonder why it goes on as long as it does. I think it is duller than the Pawns Go First. I really do.
Yeah, well, it feels like that's there because that's what we do now, because Marvel does that stuff, so now the X-Men movies have to get to that level.
They're trying to compete.
Yeah, but that's not what they do.
And that's not what we come here for.
No.
I would say some people at the time, because everything's changed now, were coming to the Fox X-Men movies hoping for something a little more off the beaten path and maybe, dare I say, a little more sophisticated. I don't know if they always got that, but I think that's what a lot of us were kind of hoping for.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We end up with formula, and what you thought you might get was not formula because you don't have that machine with the MCU. Okay, you watched this again in preparation. Explain to me why the kid is outside and what the cops are doing with her.
Oh, God.
Oh, you can't, can you?
Okay, so Magneto and his wife are terrible parents. No, I am not sure, yeah. Well, it's obviously some sort of leverage thing for why they have her, but I don't know how they got her.
I don't know how they got her. And there's no deleted scene that explains this. And is it supposed to be at night and she was asleep? Why would she leave her room?
Yeah, did the cops take her from her room? And then at that point, why? Or did she sneak out?
Again, this movie is really bad at communicating simple points like that we need to understand character motivations, because it seems like they have the kids so that the audience will be turned against these cops. We're supposed to think that these are the bad guys from Magneto's perspective, that they're going to hate and fear mutants, that the reason they're after Magneto is because he's a mutant, not because he is a fugitive on the run. And it will turn out to have nothing whatsoever to do with racism, as far as I can tell. That does not seem to factor into it at all. We know you're Magneto. Any of us would have called the police, and any of us as police would do everything these guys do except for the accidental kill, which was an accident.
Yeah. Well, he literally in the last film dropped a baseball diamond around the White House. Like, of course you would turn him in. It would be like in the early 2000s if you saw like Bin Laden working next to you. Like, it's not a racism thing.
No, and at first he does the right thing, which is why, like I said in the review, it does not work that we're comparing this clearly the way it's shot and everything with the Auschwitz stuff, and then we make it worse by going there later.
Yeah.
That's all laying it on way too thick, and it feels like audience manipulation to me. At first, Magneto does the right thing, or Eric, I guess, till he goes full on Magneto. He goes, "Take me in, leave my family out of it," and they say okay, and they give up the daughter. And, I mean, they're being good cops. I don't know why they have the daughter in the first place, but beyond that, they're being good. I think we're supposed to think she's kidnapped for a second. They're doing the right thing past that, and then after his family accidentally gets killed, again, I understand if the idea was supposed to be in just mad rage he kills all these guys, but everything he does after that I don't buy. I would think he'd be like, oh man, I lost it, or he would just stay a crazy person. But the whole movie wants us to remain sympathetic with him for the same reasons we always have, and it doesn't work.
No, well, and comparing this to like his origin with Auschwitz is ridiculous. Like completely, like you said, like he's in the wrong.
Yeah, he's in the wrong here, and they're not. They're not like oppressive and trying to steal his family from him, and there's no power struggle here. There's not, none of this has to do with we think we're better than you are.
Yeah, and even like killing the family, because obviously that's wrong. But even then, it was an accident in the middle of a frenzy of the daughter attacking them.
Yeah, and I can see the other side of that argument where you'd go, well, maybe Magneto like wouldn't appreciate that because he's so like upset in the moment. And yeah, okay. But this is going really far when he kills every single one of them. So then I have... The problem is what the movie is saying versus what the characters are doing, right? I was right about him all along. I said in the first movie he seemed like a serial killer. And people said, well, Cap, he's only killing the bad people. And we can't necessarily condone what he's doing, but it isn't necessarily that he is a psychopath. He's clearly a psychopath, and here at least, and the movie doesn't know it, because he's allowed to turn around at the end, even though he's probably responsible for not just a couple dozen, but thousands of deaths. And then right at the end, Xavier's like, "Yeah, I sure wish you'd stay, Magneto." Like, I don't buy anything that happens with this character in this entire movie.
No, well, it feels like he's here because Magneto is in all the X-Men movies, so he needs to be in this movie, but we have nothing to do with him.
There's supposed to be a payoff, or I say supposed to be, there's a deleted scene where there's a payoff for the lullaby that he sings to his kid, where Fassbender came up with this, where he asked Singer to let that scene go on longer and to not say cut, and he sings that lullaby to his dead daughter, and that's how the scene ends. And for whatever reason, Singer thought, and he says in the commentary and in other places that it's like the biggest regret he's ever had in his career, which is hilarious because this movie is terrible, that he cut that from the movie, and he said that it went on too long and played like it was laying it on too thick, like the beat didn't work. And I was like, well, your instincts are all over the place, because there's lots of that in this movie, but that's the thing you cut? Okay.
I will say, though, I think Fassbender is still given a great performance. Like, he's still owning everything he's got, at least in that stuff, even if it's not great.
I don't know why, but that always almost makes it worse for me.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I can understand that. But, like, I feel like some of the other actors, they're not given bad performances, but they have nothing to work with. So it's almost like, we're just kind of here doing what we do.
So I don't know why any of the Horsemen end up following Apocalypse. And like I said in the rewind, I thought for a long time that it was mind control. Because in the comics, isn't it kind of mind control? Like, he turns these characters into horsemen, and then later on, if they're able to get turned back, they'll be remorseful for what happened, and it's like, Archangel's not exactly the same character as Angel, like he transforms him into a different guy. So, like, I don't mean to bring source material to it and go, surely it must have been that, but there's no explanation as to why any of these characters are following this, like, megalomaniac murderer guy. Storm's like, I want to be a hero. Like my hero, Cyclops. Not Psylocke. Frickin' Mystique.
You know, like actual heroes.
Sorry, I just keep thinking of heroes. Pardon me. I'm gonna follow this guy that just beheaded all of these people in an alleyway.
It's kind of stupid.
And I get that it could have played, right? Where she's like, well, he saved me, so maybe he's just misguided in killing people, where he's out of touch, he doesn't understand what he's doing. Like, she doesn't know who this guy is or where he came from. She has not a speech. She doesn't get to talk enough to call it a speech. She has that line later where she's like, well, you can't just go around killing people. Almost like he's an alien from another world, where she has to teach him our ways or something.
She's John Connor and he's the Terminator.
Yeah. Or like, I don't know, E.T. or something. And...
oh, famous murderer, E.T., yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, alien from another world. You gotta teach him how it works here. Yeah,
no, of course.
Believe it or not, this is a movie that has that, like, unfunny, cringeworthy ad-libbing problem. And it's McAvoy doing some of it.
Yeah. Well, this has that really, like, awkward, like, nobody talks like this kind of, like, romantic stuff where he's into her and he, like, I'm gonna go check her out. I mean, check this out. Like, nobody speaks like that.
And even if they did, that is inappropriate because he wiped her memories and he is looking at that as a violation that he needs to eventually do something about. Like, he feels bad about it. And first of all, there's no reason not to just give her memories back at the beginning of the movie. I mean, like, she knows about mutants now. The only reason you wouldn't is if you didn't trust her because she's CIA. That does not seem to be the case, because otherwise he would still keep it from her at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you get my favorite back and forth where she's like, oh, I was married, and then I had a divorce. And he just goes, oh, good.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
And that's an ad-lib. That wasn't in the script. Yeah, McAvoy just did that.
And it's terrible.
And again, I mean, he's essentially, in a way, this is not wholly true, but in a way it's like he's talking to a non-entity right now. And this is further manipulation. And I really like, in a way, right? I really like, as I've said 100 times before in other things, ethically ambiguous Xavier. This is not an interesting version of that.
Yeah.
Because we're not dealing with an ethical conundrum. We're not like discussing does Xavier go too far sometimes? Is he controlling people? Is he too much about like lording over people and doesn't even realize it? Sort of like the Boom Power Ranger comics are doing right now with Zordon. Where it's like his heart's in the right place. He thinks, but he's too used to being in charge, and after a while, it accidentally stops being as much about his ideology, his principles, and it becomes more about I'm right because I'm the leader.
Yeah,
it should be about that stuff.
Yeah, it's like the movie doesn't really think it's like this big conundrum. It's almost that like the Wonder Woman 84 thing where we're just not talking about it at all.
Yeah, about these like really ethically ambiguous or bereft things the characters are doing.
Mm-hmm.
If the movie doesn't know that, that's a problem because it seems itself out of touch, and these characters don't feel like real people, and so it's hard to get on a level with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I love this girl playing Storm. I've always said
wonderful.
that.
I think she's the best of the new cast.
Freaking spectacular. She doesn't get enough to do maybe for me to even say that. I love her look. I love the accent. I think she's got real potential to become that character and to be like the definitive version of that character, and she doesn't get to do it, and it sucks.
And it's so nice because Storm's one of the weakest links of the original movies.
Yeah. And they nail it with their casting with her.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah,
looks
she's
good with
the
a
best of the
mohawk,
newest one.
and that's hard to pull off.
Yeah, no, she just looks perfect.
And also, like, a young Storm is not a thing we get to see a lot. Like, usually you think of Storm as a, you know, like, 35-year-old. Like, she's been around the block a little bit. And so, isn't it kind of ironic that, like, we finally get an actress that I can kind of see as this character? And I've never seen a Storm this young, but I'm like, I'm buying it. I still say she should have been in...
Well, she's like, she has to be like almost 30 because you see like 10-year-old Storm in First Class, so she is like 30.
I forgot about that. That's unfortunate. We're just gonna pretend like that was some other character. See, that's the thing, is we're even retconning the movies. We have no standard with this stuff, where it's like, if it's a character that was in the background, they don't count as a real character. You just pretend like you didn't see them.
Yeah. Well, I had the thought...
This is like the fourth Jubilee.
Well, I had a thought while watching this, because in Days of Future Past they mentioned that Stryker's son is 10, so by this one he's 20, and I guess he just doesn't exist in this one now, and like in these movies anymore. Like, we're not going to do anything with him.
Yeah, and he can't... So here's the thing. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about the age thing. Yeah, he would be 20, which means he must have already gone to Xavier's school, or else he is just an adult living in his parents' house pathetically. And his parents try to make him go to Xavier's school because they mistakenly think that Xavier can get rid of his mutantness.
Yeah.
And it's after the age of 20... The kid being 20, that the wife puts the, like, power drill to her head. Okay? Like...
Well, no.
He would have to have a completely
movie,
different
like,
motivation now for doing what he's doing, and then that's too easy. It's like, oh, Stryker's going to go exactly the same way. It's just somehow he got there some other way, and conveniently we never know what that is. So, but he was already in the last movie 10 years earlier. It's so weird that they set up the son, and then it's like he doesn't exist here.
Yeah, well, yeah, because in First Class you get Stryker's father, and then in Days of Future Past you get Stryker himself, and they mention his son.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So there's Caliban. I do think it's kind of neat that we introduced this character here, and then you get to see an older version of him in Logan. It's real subtle. Like, I'm sure a lot of people didn't even realize it was the same character.
Yeah, well, it's a little strange because they're very different.
I mean, they're totally different people, absolutely.
Yeah, because this guy's so, like, flamboyant.
He has a completely different way of speaking, different mannerisms, and he talks about himself in the third person. But I mean, you know, decades later, he could be somewhat different. But I don't know, why is he this flamboyant?
He's just very jaded.
Very jaded. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I want to say it's neat and clever, but I mean, it's not like we're doing anything with it. But just, it feels like that would have had to have been coordinated.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I've never been sure about, is if there was talk between them, or if they both just happened to use this character. Because he's like a glorified extra in this film. He only gets 2 scenes.
Yes.
But they also don't kill him, so...
Singer wants you to think that there's a lot of coordination between those movies, because he says, and I didn't talk about this in the review either, he says that at the end of this movie, with the after credit scene, that, get this, the Essex thing is supposed to be setting up the next Wolverine movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I guess that decades down the road, the Essex thing could turn into the group that is doing the genetic experiments on mutants and creates the clone of Wolverine and all of that. But it's weird that you would be doing that to set that up, but you're making a big deal out of Sinister?
Yeah. Well, and we did that with several movies. We were just constantly going, Sinister's coming, Sinister's coming. And
then he never did. Was there an after credits for Dark Phoenix? I don't even remember.
I wouldn't think so, because they reshot that whole ending.
Yeah, I don't think there was, but
Yeah, no, because they were like they knew it was kind of it, so they reshot it to
here comes
make
that
it more of an
line
ending.
from Jean. You're not the only one that can't control your powers. I do have to say they were really smart to delete that scene.
Well, now
She's-
I would just want that scene in the movie, just to have her be like, "They think I'm a freak."
When I said I can't control my powers, I mean everything but telekinesis. I've got that figured out, no problem.
Well, it'd be even better if she could control her powers. She shot the arrow and then just turned it into the Phoenix and disintegrated them. I guess she couldn't control her powers, I should say.
So this whole thing is a little awkward. I mean, obviously you kind of have to have this scene where Beast is talking to Mystique, and we're kind of reminding the audience that they, used to have a thing way back in First Class. But we've changed the continuity from what it originally was supposed to be when they did the Rogue Cut, or with what we got in the Rogue Cut, I should say, where I have now seen these characters meet again like this twice. If you've seen the Rogue Cut, it's really funny that ended up happening, and I mean, like obviously they're gonna have to shoot something else because that's not what really happened, but it's just weird in my brain. I've seen that scene twice now.
Well, I was gonna say, is the Rogue Cut just what's canon? Because that's got the Stryker thing. But I guess if the Mystique and Beast relationship is repeated, then I guess not.
No, it's definitely not canon. But what do you mean it's got the Stryker thing? Because the mention of his son.
Because no, but I mean they take out the eye flash, so that would be what actually happened.
I didn't remember they took out the eye flash.
Isn't that a thing in the Rogue? I don't know. I could be wrong.
I don't remember. I've only watched it once. If that's the case, that's interesting. But yeah, it still doesn't work because of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the Rogue Cut, so.
Me neither. Well, it isn't. It is the inferior cut, and I appreciate that they didn't treat it like this big, great director's cut. That's what we should have always gotten. I mean, it would be weird to do that, given that was as popular as it was.
Yeah.
That's not a BVS situation where you
the
release a cut
cut
and go, no, I know you guys weren't happy with this, but this is what it was really supposed to be like.
Well, we need the Jubilee cut for this film.
Okay, Psylocke fans and actress who's a giant Psylocke fan, this is your one moment of sort of a Psylocke thing.
Yeah, Olivia Munn needs a new agent after this in The Predator.
I feel bad for her in this movie, man. And once again, no idea why Psylocke is following this guy. Also, no idea why she doesn't turn on Apocalypse at the end, and what the thing is with her just kind of skulking away.
Well, and for the longest time, if you went Googled the cast for Dark Phoenix, she was always listed. Even shortly before that movie came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the longest time,
I didn't know that.
I just assumed she was in that movie until I finally saw it and was like, oh, she just doesn't show up again.
That's amazing. I bet they shot scenes.
Well, I don't know if it was just that they shot scenes, or if it was just everybody just assumed that she would be there.
Okay, riddle me this, Austin. Is Mystique Nightcrawler's mother?
I'm gonna go with no.
Yeah. I assume not.
Yeah.
You could have done a subplot there where she learns that at the same time as Magneto learns about Quicksilver, and that they both have family they didn't know about, and that kind of brings the humanity out of them. That's maybe a thing you could have done.
No, they would both not reveal it, and Quicksilver and Nightcrawler would be like, maybe one day.
They have a conversation at the end. It's like, why didn't you tell her? I got cold feet. Why didn't you tell him? I also got cold feet, even though it might have saved the world.
You'll have a scene earlier where they're both like, okay, let's do it. Let's tell them. And then at the end, they're like, I got cold feet. So did I.
I just thought of something. We are doing the exact same thing with the introduction of Nightcrawler from X2 with Angel here, where they're in a dark building and they're looking up at him, and he's jumping around, and he's like, leave, because remember Nightcrawler's like, get out, and he's like, piss off, and it's the same scene.
but it's different because was it Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by Metallica is playing, so it's more relevant.
Oh. Okay, I would have saved that song until they had four.
That's really funny. I didn't think about that.
They're playing Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse while they're getting the third horseman. All right. His whole motivation is, cool, my wings got fixed and they're metal now. Rock on, dude. That's why he follows the god that wants to kill everything.
Well, his and Psylocke's motivation is there needs to be four.
Yeah, that's it. And then there were four. The
Yeah.
costumes are very strange.
Yeah, well, because they all have they all look like they have kind of a team appearance, like a theme going on, except for Psylocke, who's just Psylocke.
Because it's Olivia Munn playing a character named Psylocke who is cosplaying Psylocke.
Yeah. Well, and this is also our second Psylocke, because she's in X3.
I forgot about that. So we've done that too. Yeah, I complained all over the rewind about the de-aging Angel thing, but I guess we de-aged her too. But Angel was more of a character in that movie.
Yeah, well, I don't even think Psylocke has Psylocke powers in that movie.
Yeah,
I think she's just like a background character.
Yeah, now that you say that, I'm remembering what she looks like. But okay, so here's another riddle me this situation, Austin. Riddle me this. Am I wrong that it's a nuclear reactor that blows up the mansion? Because it sure seems like it. There's this weird thing in the background. Or is it just a jet engine? Because in the commentary, Singer is talking about this thing that's like a nuclear reactor they just put in the background. And I thought that was the thing that exploded, but maybe it's just supposed to be a jet engine. I'm not sure.
Well, it's the same like reactor thing, I think, that they have in Days of Future Past, where they blow up the jet to like blow up like the hundreds of Sentinels that are attacking them. The only difference is that it's blue here instead of purple.
Okay, well maybe that was an unfair criticism on my part then.
Well, yeah, well, it's not like a regular jet engine. Like it's something. I don't know if it's a full nuclear reactor.
I don't know why they would
But
need
it's
something
something
so
to do with
heavy
that
duty
jet.
that if it exploded, it would blow up the entire mansion. Like it's a mansion.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get my favorite thing in a bit with the mansion, where we go to Cerebro, and Hank says it's redesigned, and I feel like it's not because it looks the same. But he also implies that he made it blue because of Mystique, but it's blue in the last movie.
Well, maybe he designed it that way in the last movie for that
Oh,
reason.
unless I'm just stupid, because she also doesn't go to it in that movie.
No, she doesn't.
Maybe?
She does in the Rogue cut because they repeat the X2 thing.
Okay, so maybe that's why
She's never at the mansion in that movie. They reworked it so that when she's at the airport, she's not heading to the mansion, but she's heading to DC.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So maybe it is just because she didn't go there last time. Maybe I'm just dumb, and the movie's not dumb.
So again, it's playing it like I'm supposed to, even though maybe I wouldn't condone this, I'm supposed to feel for Magneto because his family died. So on some level, I can understand why he would come murder innocent people that had nothing to do with it. Like, he was going to turn himself in. He's mad at whoever in here called the police on him for being Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's this really dangerous guy on the run as far as they know.
Yeah.
He's, I mean, like it's revenge that you can't begin to even understand on any level. Like, maybe, I don't know, Austin, maybe it would have to happen to me, you know? Like,
He's playing the blame game.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, it's not his fault because Apocalypse actually killed all these people himself. But it still is, because he wouldn't have done that if it weren't for Magneto about to kill them all. But also, he did kill all those other people earlier with the lock-in.
Yeah, well, we just got the absolute worst F-bomb. It's so tone deaf.
I guess it doesn't bother me that much. Like, is it just because it's him saying it? Because I've heard a lot of people say that, and I don't know. It's not. I mean,
the thing
it's obligatory because we always have to have an F-bomb in these for some reason. But
the reason why it's so terrible is because he's in this really dark scene where he's like, "Because of you, my family's dead. I'm gonna kill you all." And then a blue man appears behind him, and he turns around and has like a comedy line. It's just really tone deaf.
That's fair. No, you're right. It's the same thing as, are you gonna pick all that stuff up, right?
Yeah, like it's just we're in the middle of this. Well, and that at least is at the end of the scene. We're in the middle of this scene.
Well, like, I think that line's really funny, actually. Like, that's not tone deaf.
Yeah.
That's great. But
No, of course. But I just mean, like, that's at least at the end of the scene, so it's not cutting the drama. We were in the middle of that scene, and we just stopped and went, okay, we're done with this.
So, did you have the same thing I did in the theater, where it's like, wait, why is he following Apocalypse? Like, I don't understand why he even goes.
Yeah, Apocalypse is so shady. When he went into that bubble, he might as well have said he has candy. Like,
you don't know what's gonna happen. You've never been through a a dimensional gateway, or what? It's not dimensional, but you know, like a portal before. You don't know if maybe he just wants you dead. You don't know.
But like, yeah, like you're standing there, and a blue man, a woman with a mohawk, an Asian ninja woman,
and someone cosplaying Psylocke.
And a man with giant metal wings comes up to you. They're like, "Come with us. Don't ask why. You'll see." No, I don't understand why Magneto goes with them. It's very weird.
And it's not like, thank you for killing all these people I could have killed anyway.
Yeah, wouldn't he be mad? Like, I was going to get revenge. You ruined that.
I mean, maybe he's thinking, I can't save this. I mean, maybe he's thinking, like, this guy wants the same things I do because he was fine with all these people dying, but maybe he just doesn't have any regard for life because he's... I mean, you don't know anything about Apocalypse yet, but he's clearly probably a mutant who thinks he's better than humans.
Maybe he just likes blue. He's like, I'll trust you. You're blue. I like the Smurfs.
Okay,
That's why Smurfs were his daughter's favorite thing.
Do you feel the same way about the? They don't have a TV. There's no way they had a TV. Do you feel the same way about the mouth that I do?
Yeah, no, it's very weird how he's got the line connecting it, but it doesn't open up that way. And it would be really unique for a villain to have that.
I think it's so disappointing that they didn't even try it. And I mean, maybe they did and they just couldn't make it look good. But that in this movie, with like all the things that don't look great, I don't know. I spent the whole movie doing this. I was like, that's weird. Like... Spend the whole time you want to know how I got these scars? Like,
well, it might have looked weird with like really tiny Apocalypse that we have in this. Like maybe you need like giant, like Thanos-sized Apocalypse. I don't know.
Oh my god! I suddenly have so many more questions than I even did before. Like I've written an hour and 10 minutes on this, and suddenly this all comes to me. Why does he even think to take him to Auschwitz? Like, how does he know about that? Did he get enough stuff from the TV that he knows exactly what happened in his background? Like, it's not the internet that he downloaded into his brain.
He watched the first two movies.
Why does he think he needs this level of motivation when everybody else he's recruited just follows him everywhere?
Yeah, no, I wondered about the Auschwitz thing too, because he doesn't know anything about Magneto. He just rocks up and he's like, "Come with me."
Which is one of the things that makes you wonder what his power set is, because when I was legitimately confused in the theater when he was like, "Oh, I need Xavier so that I can control everybody's minds and broadcast everyone." I'm like, well, you clearly have mind control powers. Oh wait, you don't have mind control powers? Oh.
Well, are they thinking that this is just public knowledge? Like Psylocke and Storm or whoever could maybe fill him in on that? Is that maybe what they think?
Whatever it is, could we have a scene? And I mean, honestly, so much of my review you can't make Pac-Man go faster. So much of my review...
It's like Star Trek 4.
Yeah, exactly. Keyboard. How quaint. But you could have... My whole review could have just been... Could we have a scene, please?
No. The answer is no.
So much of this is just like really counterintuitive storytelling, where you just like we know. I've said this 1,000 times, but it's just that thing where you know where you want characters to go, so you just write some easy thing to get them there, and you need to stop pretending like your movie is character driven if it's gonna be that plot driven. Like, then just do a fun plot driven romp. Like, that's fine. Just be simpler. Stop trying to make me care about characters and just make them fun, and then have them go places and do things, or have the whole movie just Apocalypse is destroying the world because it's a disaster movie, and he's a force of nature, and we got the X-Men, and they're gonna come in. It's like da 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 da, and then they're gonna they're gonna pick up people. They're falling out of the sky, and they're gonna fight the big bad guy. And you know how long that movie is? It's an hour and a half, and we're out.
I want that just because I would hope that movie would have Magneto yelling, "X-Men, welcome to die."
So, that's the famous the third movie is always bad scene.
And does that make sense at that point? Because Star Wars is like the big thing that kind of cements the trilogy.
How many trilogies have they even seen?
Because I was thinking about it, and I'm
point.
like, the big franchise things that I would think of are all movies that went past 3, like the Universal Monster type things, where we went past 3 and it was just the law of diminishing returns.
Even Indiana Jones ends later than that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like that third movie, but there's a lot of other people that think that that's the worst of the 3. Like, anything you could point to happens after that. And especially anything that's a proper trilogy. No, you're right about that.
No, it's 100% just here's the middle finger to X3.
Again, I don't think it's 100%. I do think that they're poking fun at themselves, but I also think
I was going to say and that, but yeah.
But it's insurance, right? It might not be, we know we're making a lesser product, because at least, I mean, he's laying on thick. At least in the commentary, Singer is acting like this might be the best of them. And to be fair, there are places where he's like, yeah, we made this really convenient, whatever. It's just that kind of movie. There's other places where he's acting like, look how poignant this is. And I'm like, okay. I really, this is wishful thinking. I mean, I couldn't have expected this. I would have loved to have gone into that, and it's like, okay, I hope you guys have fun with this movie. It wasn't exactly what we were hoping it would turn into, you know? And that's kind of what you got with Black and Iron Man 3 a little bit, where he's like, here's all these ideas we had that didn't make the movie. This is compromised. I hope you like what we ended up with. It's the best we could do with the compromises we had to make. Where he's just, like, really fair with the audience. Singer is not that way. So when they go, the third movie is always the worst, it reads more like insurance to me. Like, yes, dogging on X3, but also going, well, if people don't like it, we said this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. Well, and that's, like, all the downtime we get with those characters, because it's all cut.
Yep. And there wasn't a ton of it in the first place, and I don't love that mall sequence, but I wish it was still here, because the problem is, you do have all this total whiplash in this movie, where you have this really silly, happy-go-lucky, mall sequence that just doesn't exactly fit, but at least we haven't blown up the mansion by the point that we do that scene. Although it is weird, I'm getting ahead of myself, it is weird, though, when we get to the mansion blowing up.
And it's also a comedy scene?
I know, but that's not what I was going to say. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about all the characters that just all suddenly show up at the same place at exactly the same time? So, like, Quicksilver is running to get to the mansion to see Xavier, and he hasn't seen any of these people in 10 years. And the moment he happens to walk up is the moment the mansion is exploding, and at the same time, the car with the kids from the mall is pulling up, all simultaneously.
Well, and I didn't think about it until this time. How does Quicksilver even know the mansion's exploding? It's in, like, the basement, and it just starts, and he walks up, and he's like, here we go, and he runs in. It's really weird.
We'll look at it when we get there. I think you can see it... So here's the thing. I think you can see some exploding already happening, but then he's able to save every person but one? If he
Yeah.
already sees some of an explosion?
Well, maybe I just didn't see it right, but I thought he was just looking at the mansion and he was like, "Here we go, it's exploding. It's my time to shine."
If you're right about that, I want to think that he had planned on doing some big, elaborate, run really fast sequence regardless of what was happening. Like, whatever was going on there, he was gonna be running in like that.
Yeah, well, and then of course you have my favorite Quicksilver nitpick, which is just that he's listening to music that's playing in regular time.
I tried your way, Charles. I tried to be like them. And then a guy accidentally let a bow go, or let his arrow go, and now humans are, all of them are to blame. I don't know, intent matters, Magneto. Like, I don't want to read his movie reviews, that's all I'm saying. But yeah, I know I talked about this a lot already, but man, I cannot deal with Xavier in this scene not saying, Magneto, you've been murdering innocent people, stop it!
Stop it.
I already thought that he was too lenient about that in First Class. I still stand by that. It's weird that there's never a conversation about it. I mean, you had that scene where he walks up on the barbed wire and he's like, "Oh, Eric," and there's never a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And then you get to this and it's insane.
It always felt to me in First Class like it was like a friend thing where he was like kind of looking past it, like just like, this is my friend, but it's way too far at this point. Yeah.
Oh god, that Apocalypse look is so unintentionally funny. It's like, ugh!
Oh yeah.
Okay, and then we see some of that future premonition again, and it's that same red, and it's like, how much of that is supposed to be Phoenix, and how much of it is Apocalypse? And I guess we'll never know because they stopped most of it from happening.
Well, you see, it was a whole age that they were looking at. But now it's gone.
So like I said, it's hard to come up with things that would really save some of the most egregious things with this movie. It's hard not to watch this and just like try to come up with who the Four Horsemen really ought to have been. I think just creating, or not creating new characters, but bringing in characters that weren't somebody first would have fine. Just have a war. I don't know. Like,
do Wolverine and have that be how he got his claws. Where he gets the medal from Apocalypse instead of Stryker. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, that's what I was going to say is, I've not heard ideas I love. What do you think of my, and I don't even know if I like this, what do you think of my notion of actually letting Xavier be a horseman? Where we do sort of an onslaught thing with him. Because the problem is, if you do that, no more systems! In the commentary, Seeger talks about how he put it in degrees on the set of Skeletor. So when he was talking to what's his name, that actor? Help me out real fast.
Oscar Isaac.
Thank you, Oscar. When he's talking to Oscar Isaacs, he's like, he puts it in degrees of Skeletor. So like, I want you to go 1/4 Skeletor or 2/3 Skeletor, and they're talking about the over the top performance in Master of the Universe.
Well, now I just want like the 80s cartoon Skeletor voice on Apocalypse. Yes.
Obviously the Stan Lee cameo is really classy.
Yeah, it's really nice that his wife got to be in a cameo with him.
I think that's super, super cool.
Yeah, because I don't think we've ever had her in anything with him. That's really cool.
But I do think it's really funny that his cameo in both, again, just a weird, silly thing that it has in common with X3, is just like in X3, is him standing outside in his yard. So, this is also a thing I meant to write about, Austin. Okay, wreak havoc is dumb. Let's just get that out of the way real quick. Okay, we get it. Like, you said destroy everything already. What I love is this idea that he's just about to destroy everything, and then Xavier stops like, wait, hold on for a second. I gotta say the line, okay? Wreak havoc. Okay, now you can do it. Go ahead.
That only works if you have a thick Austrian accent for that type of a one-liner.
Xavier is so lucky that this didn't kill him, and he doesn't seem to be worried that it might. Like,
Yeah, I had that thought too. Like, this should do some sort of damage considering he's hooked up into it.
yeah, Cerebro is supposed to be, like, difficult to use for psychics and dangerous, and he's the world's greatest psychic, which is why he's able to use it as well as he can, and why it's not dangerous until somebody starts futzing with it. But remember in X-Men 1 when Mystique
Jean puts it on? Oh.
Just,
yeah.
It just, like, did something to the circuitry and then it messed up his head. Like, if he's connected to that many people...
But even then, like, Jean tries to use it, and it's, like, really messes her up.
Yeah. You could have had a whole, like, plot about he has to stay connected to Cerebro or it's going to kill him.
That's how you take him out?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying they should have done that. I'm just saying that, like,
No, I know.
that could have easily been a big conflict for him. Oh, you
Yeah.
mean like a way to cut him out of the movie for a while, like we used to with... Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what the house looks like when he walks up. Can turn the camera. And also, when you get to the end of the scene, I'm pretty sure they
there's no exploding.
There's nothing happening.
He just walks up and he just knows.
How does he know that? Maybe he's hearing an explosion?
He wouldn't have been able to hear the explosion by this point. Like...
Oh, that's so dumb. Yeah, good call.
And it's already super convenient that he just shows up. And this scene, like, looks really bad, too.
It just doesn't look good. And the problem is... I mean, obviously, you've got this tonal whiplash thing, and the biggest problem with it is I don't feel like Quicksilver would have the same attitude he does in this scene that he did in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, no, because he's just kind of goofing off in that scene. He's also 10 years younger in that scene.
That's the thing, is, like, why is he still goofing off like this? Like, I get he would still have some of the same humor sensibilities and stuff, but I think he would have grown up a little bit. And I think the idea is supposed to be, or the excuse anyway, is, well, he lives in his mom's basement, so he's still like this?
Yeah, well, and also part of it is, like, oh, my 3 friends here are going to get shot by, like, 6 guys. Here, an entire house full of children is exploding.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to be a goofball.
Well, and I don't remember if I wrote about this, but God, that looks really bad. But
it looks awful.
The problem is, he doesn't have cosmic awareness or anything. He can't see the future. He doesn't have an ability to scan the building and know where the explosion is in each room. Like, he's just lucky that he's able to stay ahead of the explosion, that it doesn't spread in a different way, and that he can rescue everything before it spread all the way through.
Yeah, when you get this weird thing where, like, he moves, gets everybody out of a room, and then the explosion goes out farther. And then it stops, and he takes people out of a room, and then it gets bigger. And it's...
In Days of Future Past, he can see the whole room. He knows how much time he has.
Yeah.
He can calculate the trajectory of the bullet, of each bullet, to where it's going to hit when and stuff. That's why I say
only
this
like
is
6 people.
This is just way too over the top.
Yeah, it's turned up way past 11.
Exactly. So all the dramatic tension of look, and then it pulls up. So did time reverse?
Well, because they were still pulling up, so I guess he did all of that before they were fully in.
But they were right up to him, and was that them pulling up to the building, or was that them pulling up the street in the first place? I have a hard time getting a sense of space in this scene. Why did Mystique turn back into her Mystique form? I'm not sure what made that happen.
Because she needs to understand that the children worship her. She's a hero.
Oh. But she never seems to have to concentrate that hard to keep her form.
No, it's just a thing in First Class, and here we're just kind of ignoring that.
She didn't get knocked out or anything, did she?
No.
Because we do that in Days of Future Past, right? Like, that happens, where she'll be in a different form, but then she'll get, knocked out or something, and then she'll transform back. I think that happens somewhere.
Yeah.
I know what happens in X3 anyway, but...
Yeah. In our one scene in X3.
Yep. A woman scorned.
Yeah, but see, now this is a sad scene again.
Yeah, you're gonna suck out all the dramatic tension. Have this comedy scene where we're like, oh my god, the mansion exploded. Like, this is huge. And then, sweet Jesus, and then, like, gross kid making out. Aha, isn't that funny? And then, like, he pecks Moira on the cheek or whatever. And you're just like, okay, I'm glad he saved everyone. I guess we're frolicking again. And then, oh, Havoc died. And I don't know why I'm supposed to feel anything about that, because these movies have clearly already decided none of those characters from First Class matter. I fully expected Havoc to die in this movie, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course.
And now we're just playing our greatest hits, and you guys did that already. I'm talking about with Stryker. Like, you already played your greatest hits in a pretty well-integrated way. Like, it worked fine last time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really need big motivations for Stryker yet, because he wasn't, like, taking mutants and things yet. He was just working for the military.
Well, he was taking the mutants out of Vietnam. That's his first scene.
That's right. Okay.
But he seems to be working with Trask in that. So he's
then I don't know if it's already a problem, because I would have thought... I you know what, honestly, I don't like that either. I would have thought that he would need the background with his son before he was anti-mutant.
Also, do you like
do you disagree with that
line here?
Say it again.
Do you like this cutesy line here, the leave the kids?
Why is that cutesy?
Because in X2 he comes to the mansion and takes all the kids.
Oh.
Here he comes in and just takes the adults.
See, it's different. Isn't that cool?
It's different. Remember X2? But yeah, no, as for your Stryker thing, Stryker's just a different character in every movie he shows up in. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of frustrating, I think, in general.
Yeah, but I mean, what sucks is I'm supposed to have all this nostalgia for X2 because the same guy who made that is making these and bringing in characters that he dealt with before with the same stings that Ottman had in the soundtrack. But I'm also supposed to be okay with, like, random retcons where these characters are doing things for totally different reasons. And, like, you can't have all that at the same time. Why am I supposed to feel anything about Stryker showing up if he's not Stryker?
You know what it is?
And it's worse for me because he's one of my favorite villains in a superhero movie. Like, period.
He's great, yeah. You know what it is? It's that Disney straight-to-DVD sequel thing where you get a character that's just what you expect them to be because that's what you saw them and that's what you want again.
Great point. That's exactly right.
It's Stryker takes mutants. That's what he does. It doesn't matter why he does that. That's what he does. It's what you came to see.
Well, can I not say the same thing about Magneto in this?
No, absolutely. Magneto's completely shoehorned into this film. So
it's basically it's Jafar then. It's like, look, he's back. It's Jafar.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or like if you get what is it, like Brother Bear 2, where it's like, oh, there are bears again. You remember when they were bears.
Nightcrawler has no reason to be here. He doesn't get even as much as to do as he did in X2. And I think that's one of the things that's really frustrating is even these being younger versions and us doing the pseudo prequel plus sequel plus third part of a trilogy plus the first part of a new trilogy thing. You expect these characters, you expect to take the opportunity to give characters that didn't get enough to do last time some stuff to do this time. Which means you have to either, unless you can find a way to integrate it all, and if you have 2.5 hours, maybe you could, I would either focus on Xavier and Magneto and Mystique again, or I would focus on these guys and let them be the mentor characters. If you could do both, if all of these people could have arcs, or if you... I don't mean every single new character needs a full-blown, complex character arc. Make this about Cyclops. Make it about Jean. Make it about Nightcrawler. Frickin' pick one. And you could do both. You know what it could be? Have you ever seen Firefly and Serenity?
Yeah, I love Firefly.
Couldn't it be the thing that you did in Serenity, where that you have a parallel story about Malin River, and at the end they come together? Do that. Have like this story is about, and make it two characters that you wouldn't expect it to be about, right? Like it's about
one
Mystique,
of the kids and one of the adults,
and it's about Jean. Or it's about Storm, or whatever. That's how you put all that together, and that's how it could be the third in this, and it should be Mystique. I still say this should be her movie. I don't like Jennifer Lawrence in this movie. I'm just talking about the what
just
makes
structure
sense.
What we've done, yeah.
I don't know what else you say with Xavier and Magneto. They clearly don't know what else to say with Xavier and Magneto.
Well, and
now let's stand around on rocks
for Mystique. So yeah,
I'm sorry. Say that again.
So we have an arc for Mystique where she doesn't want to be the hero, but she has to be the hero at the end.
Yeah, and see, it's cool and meta because the actress also doesn't want to be a hero in a film.
Yeah,
wearing makeup. You know why this is set in 1983? So that Xavier can wear that watch. That's the reason.
What are the horsemen doing in this scene? Like, Angel's just kind of standing there.
They're standing on their mark.
Yeah, they're all just standing menacingly, like.
And you know what most blew my mind about the scene? Or I guess all the scenes that take place here where they're all just standing. And I stand by what I said in the rewind, man. I think you can see disdain on every actor's face having to spend so much of the movie just freaking standing on rocks. How in the world is Vasquez Rock not in that scene somewhere? Like, I cannot believe that was not somehow shoehorned into the background of that scene.
Yeah, so now we're just straight up X2, except instead of the adults having to save the kids, it's the kids saving the adults.
And Singer thinks it's so poetic and cool. Like, it's that George Lucas thing. It's poetry, it rhymes. He thinks it's so cool to do anything that is not exactly what it was last time.
Yeah, well, he reversed those two things. Like I said, it's now the kids have to save them. And
And that's what he says about the beginning of this movie. Where it's like, oh, isn't it cool that Magneto's not where you expect to be? He's got a family. Your mind is blown, right? Because he's got a family.
I definitely don't look at that and think you ran out of ideas.
And that thing he says about Age of Apocalypse is insane and asinine. Oh, it's like Age of Apocalypse. People are in different places than you expect them to be. It's like, that was a different, like, reality that was changed. And also, Xavier is exactly where I expect him. I'm sorry. Now I'm just saying what I said in the rewind. But it drives me insane. It's crazy.
Well, I was thinking about that when I was rewatching it earlier today. And is that why, like, we introduced Nightcrawler, where he's, like, scared of fighting Angel, while we introduced him, like, beating up all the officials in the White House last time?
Oh, maybe so.
Is that kind of what he's going for? Like,
well, Singer says it's supposed to be cool because, look, they're all just standing on their mark.
Yeah, exactly. They're all just standing there.
I also think it's hilarious.
They might as well be T-posing.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is why we hired people that look like models. Okay. I think maybe the funniest... I didn't think of this before. I think maybe the funniest shot in the entire movie is just Apocalypse bent over with his hands on his knees. Does not seem like a position that this ancient god would be in. He's like this.
Oh my god, that's wonderful.
You know what he is? He's Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man movie.
There's a million people in this world.
He lays down and he slaps him on the back. Like, that's what he should do here.
Well, and we get a bit of a payoff with them standing in the background, where at the end you get the Xavier and Magneto scene, and the X-Men are all just standing in a line behind them.
In the commentary, though, Singer says that that's supposed to be cool because it's an angel fighting a demon-looking guy. Doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the movie. Like, we're not doing anything with that image. There's no theme about angels and demons. I mean, we have a god guy. I don't know. Something with that. Something religion. Something God guy? I don't know.
That also reminds me, and I forgot to bring it up in that scene where Apocalypse gets Angel. Doesn't he have a line where he's like, "My angel of death, Angel"?
I don't think he says exactly that, but that's amazing. So it goes without saying, but obviously, the way this should have resolved with Quicksilver is he just tells Magneto he's his kid at the end.
Yeah. Well,
And it really does feel like
by the next film where we don't deal with it there either.
Do we not? I couldn't remember because I only saw that once.
No,
that's
he
even
doesn't
worse
tell him in that either.
Well, then I can't begin to explain why it happens here because I mean, to be fair, maybe that was the plan that they would resolve it next movie, and then Kinberg screwed it up. But
yeah, cause that's what it feels like, and then yeah, you don't get a resolution for that either, which is especially funny because they reshot the ending to give it more of a resolution to the series.
Did you see that general guy earlier, that black guy who looks like Trask from X3?
Maybe it was. It's Trask's son. He was 10 in the last movie.
Wow, that's weird. I mean, I guess it's possible. You had like 4 generations of Trasks. Or 3. Okay, this is a thing that I meant to talk about, and I just didn't get there because I was complaining about so many other things when I reviewed this. Xavier repeats everything that Apocalypse says. I don't really understand why Apocalypse can't just speak through him, but I guess, would that require a power that would make him able to mind control Xavier, I guess? Maybe that's the idea. But, like,
but he was also able to do it earlier. Like, he was able to get into Xavier's mind through Magneto.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And then... But then I'm not sure if the whole world heard that speech. He might have just been talking, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Because here everybody's like, oh, wait, who's this guy who's talking to us? I'm really not sure if that speech was for anybody's benefit but ours and Xavier's. I don't know. But there, I don't know what Xavier's doing. He's repeating everything that Apocalypse says because he feels forced to. But then at the end of it, he turns the whole thing into a mixed message, and he's like, help those without. And I'm like, why did you just refuse to help in the first place? Like, you weren't worried about what Apocalypse would do to you if you changed the message at the end. All you've done is made it really confusing for all the humans around the world, where everybody's like, they're hearing this God that's saying, like, I'm going to take over, and I'm God now, and protect each other. It's weird, right? Like,
protect each other, I'm coming.
He goes, that's my message to the world. I'm like, it's a really mixed message. You should have, at the beginning of the message, been like, I'm not listening to this guy. And like, I guess he could be thinking, like, Apocalypse is going to stop me. But he doesn't know how long the message is.
Yeah, but he's also able to send a secret message to Jean simultaneously.
At the same time? Well, I mean, I guess I could maybe see that he could, like, send multiple signals at once, and...
Well, here we go. Jean is about to become a Charles Manson-esque serial killer.
She's a mass murderer at this point. Again, I do not understand how she expects anything different to happen here. And moreover, if she doesn't, why did she let Wolverine out?
Well, and why aren't the adults like, you've, like, violently slaughtered everyone at this facility?
Yeah. Nobody's a real person in this, and there are no consequences for characters doing stuff like this, because if nobody's a real person, then they're not going to react the way you would expect them to, because we're just trying to progress to the next scene. So it's okay for these characters that make, a bunch of people die on, without expecting it when they totally should, because everybody else is like, that's cool, I didn't even notice that you did that.
And remember when bullets actually, like, hurt Wolverine? Like, remember in X2 when he gets shot in the head and he's down for, like, 10 minutes?
Well, see, he has... Well, yeah. But then Then you get to Origins, where an adamantium bullet can go through his head but not kill him, when a regular bullet... Whatever.
And then in Logan, it can kill him.
I guess it's Berserker Rage Armor, where if he's Berserker raging...
It's like a video game where you hit, like, the 2 buttons that activate Berserker mode or whatever.
Yeah.
He's, like, burning down his meter.
He's got a meter that fills up. Exactly.
That makes sense. Okay, I got you now. I got you.
I meant to say this in the review, too. This actually would have made a better video game.
Well, the Origins game we got was great.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is if you got this exact crappy story as it is, but you got to play all the action parts, it's immediately a better product.
Oh, I thought you just meant this scene. Okay, yeah.
No, I mean the whole movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I would not hate the story quite as much if I got to play all the action. Because it feels like a video game.
Like an Age of Apocalypse. That's the second X-Men Legends game. I don't know what that's... like how that is, but
boy, I want to go back and play those again. I love those.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the second one. I was really big into Ultimate Alliance as a kid.
I never got into those, but the X-Men Legends games I really liked. It's just the flavor of those, the atmosphere of that was really, really cool. And they were surprisingly involved, or maybe not. Maybe involved's not the right word, but just like the way you were able to level up characters and stuff. I'd never played a game like that wasn't a straight up RPG.
Well, and when I was a kid, when I had the first Ultimate Alliance, they had a trailer that was...
Listen to it. Am I right about the Jean thing?
I think so.
Because it's going to be what sounds to me like Famke Janssen's voice saying Jean, and then she's going to say, I gave him a memory back. And I think the implication is she gave him the memory of future Jean that he shouldn't have.
No, I'm pretty sure that's what that is, yeah.
I'm almost positive.
Maybe it's the woman from Origins.
Well, in the subtitles it does say Jean is saying, to be fair.
No, I know. I'm just joking. But no, I'm pretty sure it's Famke Janssen.
I really don't know why we need to see him pulling stuff out of his gut.
Because it's really graphic. This shot is also very unintentionally funny in a second, where he runs into the snowy woods.
And then Singer talks about how there's all this amazing sexual tension in this scene.
Oh.
I know.
Well, the first time I saw this, I was like, this scene's really uncomfortable. Because that feels like that's what they're doing.
She found a piece of his past and gave it back to him. Just the few memories I could reach. Would love to know what that's supposed to be when I heard Famke Janssen.
Well, and imagine being Jean and you look into this dude's mind and you find an older version of you.
Yeah, she has no feelings about that? That doesn't rattle her at all?
Yeah,
and remember... I get that in the moment, you're trying to survive, there's adrenaline, you're probably feeling bad for all those people you just got murdered, but...
No, they don't feel bad.
No, I know. But, if they were reasonable people. But remember, these are, immature kids that haven't remotely found themselves yet and can't even, hardly get through the day of just being teenagers, much less mutant teenagers. Also, that's supposed to be funny, and it's not. I don't understand.
No.
This Nightcrawler talking through a speaker that doesn't work very well. And in the commentary, Singer's talking about, how funny that's supposed to be. It's see, we've got all these, great moments of levity because this movie is so heavy. And X3 had the same problem.
But that speaker also worked when Stryker was using it.
I am going to do an experiment, I think. Not on the channel, but if I can find time this week, I think I'm going to sit down and watch X-Men 3 again. Just because, and sort of reassess it. I mean, I don't like that movie. I'm not going to suddenly like that movie. I wouldn't think. Don't get me wrong. And the last time I sat down and watched it in succession with the other movies, not too long ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, it still is a slog and dull as bricks. But man, after this, I think I will find it more entertaining. Because I can think of positive things to say about that film. There aren't a lot. It's not good.
Looks cooler. I'll give it that.
Say it again.
Said I think the action at least looks better.
It has
in X3.
huge pacing things. But I don't think it's as bad as this.
Yeah, no, I was mixed on it until I watched it today, and I think X3 is probably the better film.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel really funky saying that, and I've had to live with this for a couple of weeks now. I did 3 watches for the rewind, including the commentaries. So I usually do this with a thing that I'm not super familiar with. I'd only seen this twice before I did the reviews. So people ask me about this all the time. How many times do you watch a movie for a rewind? It totally depends on the movie. This one I gave, and it's long, so there's more to talk about and digest. So I knew I was going to need more time with it. So I did a watch. And then I did and then I watched the commentary, and then I did a note-taking watch, and took copious notes, and now we're doing a 4th watch. This is in like 2 weeks, week and a half. I've seen this movie now 4 times in a row. I really think if I watch X-Men 3, it's going to be a breath of fresh air. I don't think Origins would be. I got that question the other night at the premiere, which, by the way, thanks to everybody that made it to that. We had a big crowd for the premiere of this, and I'm gonna do more like that because that was really cool. This is a bigger movie than some other things. I don't expect as big of a group as we got for everything, but I'm gonna do that with more of them, I think. And anyway, I had some questions about that where people were like, okay, so you think this might be worse than X3, but what do you think about Origins? I think it's right together.
See, with my sensibilities, like, I think Origins is just really funny. So
well, that's
for
true.
me,
but when I'm talking about it from a
I would
rewind
rather watch it.
we're
No,
talking
I wouldn't want to
story
write
before
about
anything.
No, I wouldn't want to write about Origins because it's nonsense.
I can't get past
just watching them.
There's nothing as dumb in this as the Animanium Bullet. There's some things that get close, but
yeah. Yeah, but just viewing it, like, it gets so dumb that it turns around and becomes funny.
So are you with me on the second act? Like, we have this really tiny second act. This movie is basically a first act and a third act with a pointless interlude. And I don't think you need it for anything except getting them an airplane.
Yeah, no, pretty much. Well, and they had an airplane, but we blew it up for no reason.
Mystique's line here should have been, she's waxing nostalgic about First Class. We used to call him Havoc. That's why right before he died, Xavier said, wreak havoc. He was going to say wreak yourself, but that sounded weird. So he didn't say that.
She should have been like, he caused ultimate havoc. He was havoc.
Seeing you that day, not murdering a man, changed my life.
No, she should be like, we used to call him Havoc. Then you kids murdered a bunch of people to save us. No, you're the Havoc.
Could we get some more information? Well, I mean, about everybody, sure. But could we get more information about Quicksilver? Why is he still living in his mom's basement? Why didn't he try to live a life after that? Does he work somewhere? Is he making tacos at the Taco John's? Like, what's he doing? I don't.
Okay, so
is it because he found out that his dad's Magneto? Because remember, he's got that reaction when he sees his dad on TV. Like, it's weird when he says, like, when she says, what you did that day on TV changed my life. And Quicksilver's like, is it Quicksilver that says me too? I think it is. And I'm like, I think what you saw your dad do that day on TV changed your life a lot more, right?
Yeah, well, it's like a joke thing where he's like, yeah, that changed my life, me too. Okay, well, nothing really changed.
Hilarious.
It's very, very good.
It's really poetic. Okay, let's look for... See, that guy looks kind of like Trask. That bald black guy. Not as much as I thought he did, though, from farther back. No, look, close up, he looks like him. When they close up on him, he looks more like him. It's like a young version of that guy.
I don't know.
You don't think so? Okay.
But I also know that actor pretty well because he's in Predator and Commando. So I also...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but if they cast him as a younger guy, as a younger version of that actor in something, you wouldn't cry foul on it. Like, he's got a similar build. Whatever.
It's okay. Everybody's a little racist. It's
That's
okay.
No!
Well, here we go. Here's the ultimate stakes. He's ending the world in really awful CGI.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Magneto has the ability to make everything look like somebody drew it in a computer.
And if you were gonna take anything from comics, why Ultimatum, where you can like move the magnetic poles to destroy the Earth?
So yeah, you always mention that. I don't think that comes from that at all. I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Is that just like a that just happened?
Well, it's as simple as Apocalypse needs somebody to rattle the whole world apart, and Magneto has magnet powers, and Apocalypse is able to amplify everybody's powers. Like, the first time you said that, I was like, I was kind of confused, because I was like, I guess I don't know why he was able to do that. And then I went back and watched it, and I was like, well, yeah, he amplifies everybody's powers.
Oh yeah, no, he's amplifying. I just mean the fact that he can do that.
Oh, okay.
But I guess they probably, because
I
doubt how much they've actually read. It's probably they both just kind of came to the same.
I think so too. But I thought your beef was it's silly that he's that powerful, and I'm like, but his powers are being magnified. Like,
no, I just always think it's funny where it's like this big story that everybody hates. There's a thing with Magneto that's in it from that book.
In the commentary, Singer acts like there's no collateral damage in this movie, even though there clearly would have to be. And he's like, we were really careful to shoot it so that it doesn't look like anybody died. Because he talks about, and I think it's maybe a direct slight against BVS. And he's like, I really hate it in action movies where you've got these big scenes where all these things are breaking everywhere, and characters have got to be, dying, and then you get to the end, and all the heroes just kind of like laugh and breathe a sigh of relief and walk on with the rest of their day. And I'm like,
was that a slight against the Avengers too? Because I mean, like we see people there, but is he maybe like the Avengers need to be crying about all the people that died at the end of this movie?
Yeah, maybe, but it's just like, but that is the movie you made, though, dude. Like, he totally made one of those.
It feels like he's just redoing those movies.
He protests too much there.
Look at all these cars, like, being pulled in. If you look closely, you can see them parachuting away.
Yeah, well, he mentions that. He's like, oh, see, there's a school bus, but if you squint really hard, you can see all these kids running away from the school bus. I'm like, okay, but the whole bridge is also being pulled apart. Like, they're dying. Like, what are you talking about? And then I guess the character art...
Nobody lived in this town that he destroyed?
So I don't like the full implications of this. The character arc for these kids is... there's this distinction we make where it's like, don't control your powers, embrace them.
It comes from their heart.
No, you want to do both, right? Like,
yeah,
there's a middle road there. It's not let your powers do whatever horrible things they can do if you don't control them, or don't use them at all. Like, the whole point of Xavier is learn to use your powers so that we can peacefully cohabitate with humans. Otherwise, the humans understandably will be afraid of us because we will accidentally murder them. And if we're all as incompetent as Jean Grey, we'll really do that. Sorry, what?
Then you can't embrace your powers if you can't control them.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I just don't like the line. I get sort of the sentiment. Like, I get that this is a case where, as long as there's not, like, any innocent people around or anything, not that we talk about that, but, like, you should probably just let yourself go because we have this insane chaos happening. Like, I get that. Well, I just don't like the implication of the line.
Yeah. Well, Mystique's only saying that because she can't shoot lasers that could kill people. It's like...
I also still don't get how you would find out that you even have the ability to move your consciousness to another person if you needed a pyramid to do it. I don't know if that's his initial... But it is possible that Apocalypse is not a mutant. Have you had that thought?
No, because I always assumed that the Apocalypse you see at the end of Days of Future Past was the original one. But yeah, I'm not sure.
But what I'm saying is, it could be technology that he developed.
Yeah.
That it was all 100% technology. You could do it with anybody, and he only uses it to transfer his consciousness to somebody else. And every time he does it, the technology allows him to hang on to the powers.
Yeah, no, of course. But what I mean by that is because at the end of Days of Future Past, you see him building a pyramid with his mind or whatever. I always just assumed that was his initial body and his initial power. So whatever those like the rock thing he does, or when he like builds stuff, but it's really hard to tell.
Singer also says that Jean putting the building back together at the end is supposed to be a callback to that after credit scene. Okay. You gotta listen to it. It's really entertaining.
That's insane. I
have done one commentary over a commentary, and that might be the next one.
Because... What, so?
Yeah, oh like, so what about that? Exactly. And this is going to be one of the worst egregious examples of we just need a speech to make a character have a change of heart. So his opportunity for change is somebody happened to mention that doing this is a bad idea. And that you have people that still care about you. Oh, okay, I guess I'll stop murdering all these people with all this metal that I'm pulling out. Like, infrastructure is done at this point, right? Like...
Well, it's especially awkward because it's like, you have people that care for you. You have me and the man you kidnapped. And he's like, you're right. There are people that care about me.
That's a really good point, yeah. This is not a convincing speech.
No, not at all.
It doesn't help that it's delivered by a woman who wishes she could get out of her contract.
Eric, stop.
Something else I meant to write up in that review. I'm so glad we're doing this commentary. Every major character with a tragic thing that happens to them in this movie responds to it. You can tell it's supposed to be sad because there's a single tear. And it happens like 3 or 4 times.
It's the Tobey Maguire. I guess just the early 2000s tier, because Lord of the Rings does that too.
It is somehow funnier here. I think because those movies are so long, it's more few and far between. So his losing his hair here is a dumb, like, Smallville kind of thing, where we have to have an explanation for every major thing that you know has to happen.
And we do it with Storm, too.
We did it with Storm? What do you mean?
Because she has black hair when he first meets her, and he, like, upgrades her, and her hair turns white.
Oh, man, I didn't even pick up on that. Well, and to be fair, we did that with Rogue at the end of the first X-Men movie, but I actually kind of liked it there.
But that's, like, a stress thing. Yeah, like, I can buy that.
Well, and again, that is clearly there partly to be like, you know, we need a clever explanation for why she has this. It's case by case, and everybody might feel differently about this, so I don't mean if you didn't like that, you're wrong or something. For some reason, in the first X-Men movie, that didn't bother me. I think it helps that there's not a bunch of them, and that, like, that's one of the only places where we go, here's an explanation for a fan thing, you know? I think it bothers me more with the bald thing because I was worried we would do this, first of all. And because I've seen it too much, specifically with people losing their hair, where, like...
Oh my god, that shot's awful. Sorry.
We do it with Lex in Smallville, of course, where it's like, we need him to look like Lex Luthor, so everybody knows that's Lex Luthor, so he has to be bald from the age of 10, instead of just, he gets older and loses all his hair. And by the way... Men can be, like, 30 or 35 and lose all their hair already. That happens all the time.
Yeah, my mom's old roommate was mostly bald by 18. And gray and, like, the bit of hair he had. Like, it happens.
Xavier is bald because he's the leader and it makes him look more sophisticated. That's it. That's why he's bald. Lex Luthor is bald because it makes him look more evil. We don't need, like cute explanations for how it happened to them.
Yeah.
And you already, and again, it works okay in the context of the movie, but you already did this with his losing his legs.
Yeah, well, and it's like a nitpick thing with First Class, but that movie like has quite a few lines where it's like, oh, what if you're bald? Like, we're already doing stuff like that with him.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. At the end of the movie, I think he has something with Moira about that.
Yeah. Well, I think they do it at least twice in that movie.
Ugh. And then it has to be a plot point.
When he goes into Cerebro, they're like, "Can we get rid of your hair?" And he's like, "You can't touch my hair." And then they do it again at the end.
I would almost be more okay with it if it happened at the beginning, because Apocalypse took him over and then he's actually taken over. It'd still be kind of stupid, but...
Well, could he have not just been bald 10 years later? Like, did he...
That would be a way to help age him up. Because
Yeah.
we're not doing anything to try to make that happen.
Well, and we talked over it, but there's like my favorite line where he sees Moira again and he's like, she hasn't aged a day.
And you know what's really funny? Maybe this is going to sound mean or something, but there are scenes where she actually does look quite a bit older than she did in First Class. And
yeah,
we'll do close-ups on her face, and I don't know if it's just like bad makeup jobs and stuff, but there are places where, this is a superficial thing to say, there are places where she looks a little older, and it's not like everybody doesn't look like they've aged to some degree, but like they look way too young from First Class to here.
Yeah, just everybody ages a little differently.
But also, there's not any discussion about how long it's been. That's part of the problem, right? Is like there are places where the movie feels like it happens like directly after the last movie, and there's places where it knows it's 10 years later.
Yeah,
it's not like Kick-Ass too bad about that, but it feels that way in places. Because nothing is as bad as Kick-Ass 2 when it comes to that.
Yeah, and there's no reason why this couldn't have also been in the 70s, just like 2 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, no reason.
Even I think if Vaughn got his trilogy, I'm sure the second X-Men movie would have been another 60s movie. I doubt he would have jumped 10 years later.
Well,
but
he
I could
also
be wrong.
loves that period. Like, I think part of the reason he said it in the 60s is so that he could make it feel like... It's not a spy movie, but it's got spy movie tendencies.
Well, of course.
Because he's like that. He's like that like Nolan is. It's like if Nolan's going to make a Batman movie, he's going to infuse some spy stuff in it, and he did the same thing. Vaughn did the same thing with First Class. So you're right. It would have been... Well, and think about it. I bet part of the reason that he said it as early in the 60s as he did was so that he could, every 2 or 3 years... move forward in the 60s. And would it have been really cool, by the way, if that last movie had taken place in like 1969, which is like, or was it 68, which is like one of the worst years in American history, where so many horrible, tragic things happen. So you could see like,
oh really?
You could see the progression through the 60s. Where you've got like this, you know, much more optimistic, hopeful time, and you deal with hippie culture and all of that, and then you get into a period where you see the transition into the 70s, and it might have been neat to kind of parallel the like metaphor, the like racist metaphor with X-Men, with what's happening through the 60s. So it's not just that you said in the 60s, because obviously that's a period where we dealt with a lot of racial issues and you had the civil rights movement, but they actually deal with the civil rights movement a little bit and parallel it with with X-Men ideas. I don't know, that could be cool.
Oh, for sure.
Like an evolution as humans are learning about them and hating them. This is dumb.
This is an awful scene. Yeah, Quicksilver just knocking Apocalypse around.
And Apocalypse is not a creative villain. He's got all these powers. I don't know what they all are. I have to assume that he's got a lot more than he's using. And he just relies constantly on this, like, I don't know if it's reality bending or just pulling, like, material out of places. And I don't know what that power is.
Well, when he killed all those people at the factory, he just sunk the floor and they all died in a second. He could easily just do that here, but he doesn't, because the movie would be over.
It's just like any bad guy with telekinesis that forgets to use it. He also loves choking people. And he doesn't need to... Why is he choking her? Why does he just suck her to the ground? You're right. Why is he taking his time?
Yeah, no, and this should be where she dies.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I say he loves choking people. I guess he only does it to that one person, but why?
Like,
I don't know if I'm just really uninvested in this because I don't like this movie, but it never fails. Every single time, I'm duped by that, and I think that that's actually Psylocke. And it turns into every single time I forget that it's Mystique. I guess I'll give him that. Good job.
Yeah, that's because Psylocke is so nothing of a character. Would you have really been surprised if she just did that?
Wait, what is happening right now?
What, with her power?
Yeah.
I assume it's like she's like doing the changing thing, but can't 'cause she's being choked? I don't know.
Is it some weird like inversion or something of his like enhancement ability?
I don't think so.
It's just she's just rippling like
Yeah.
but also if she's trying to change, what is the point? How does that help you in being choked?
She could turn into a bigger person, and then he would lose his grip, or a smaller person.
Okay, I mean I guess that's true. Actually, you could do that.
I don't know.
And
why is she not just dead?
I don't know how she survives that as long as she does.
Because he's holding her for a good, like, 10 minutes.
So we're not remotely creative with this whole thing. This third act feels really compromised. I bet the initial script has a lot more interesting things that happen here. I mean, when you talk about enough of these movies, you become a broken record. Where it's like, I'm sure this is not what this was initially like. I bet there was... I honestly think that most, like, ultimately, like, poor or, like, unengaging or dull superhero movies actually had better scripts before they were shot.
When even a lot of the ones that people like have that, like Batman.
And I say superhero movies. That's true of just a lot of Hollywood movies in general, but...
Oh, of course, yeah.
It feels like it plagues this genre as much or more than everything, but that's probably just because I'm here a lot. Anyway, I'm sorry, what?
So there's like your one big scene of Apocalypse growing. There you go.
Yeah.
You got it. And I don't know, he still feels small to me because it's just that guy, but CGI'd to be bigger.
Well, and also because we keep cutting to him being small.
Yeah, like it just doesn't look right.
Yeah, that's not good fan service.
No.
And it's obligatory fan service. It's not not clever. They're not having fun with it, so I'm not having fun with it. And this X thing is sappy and stupid.
That's what I was about to say, yeah. And doesn't stop him from moving at all. You just keep walking.
Like he's making a statement.
No, I know. But it's dumb. And he's dumb for doing it. Like
Magneto has never been an X-Man. He does not believe in Xavier's dream of X-Men. His dream of mutant and human cohabitation peacefully, but also, well, I mean, I guess he went on that mission and was technically an X-Man for half a minute in First Class, I guess, but he never would have thought of himself that way, I don't think. And then, at the end of the movie, he's also not going to stick around and be an X-Man. So the X thing just doesn't really go with this Magneto.
No, it's just there because it's cutesy.
I really appreciate Logan doing an X thing right at the end of its movie because it kind of wipes the taste of that out of my mouth a little bit because that was such a good idea there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With the stick?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with the cross.
Well, I just thought I would explain it now in case somebody else didn't know what I was talking about. Since it took
sorry.
You a minute, you know.
I thought you thought I was dumb.
No, it's just you're not the only person listening to me right now.
No, I know.
You might be. Everybody else might have jumped ship by now, having to sit through this again.
God, that shot of Xavier laying down with the giant Apocalypse head over him was really silly.
Well, I heard from a few people in the comments that still kind of enjoy this movie, but the majority of people, like the tweet length reviews, were all in in agreement, in unison. I don't think I don't know if we've had a review when I've done tweetly linked reviews where we didn't have at least one outlier or a slight outlier.
If you enjoy this movie, please email me why. But don't, because I won't read it.
Well, some people don't think the action is as bad as we do. And I don't think all the action is bad. I just think the CG is poor.
It just, I don't know, it feels very uninspired. And there's certain things like Magneto is clearly on a rig and he just looks like uncomfortable.
I don't enjoy movies that feel like they exist because they have to. We haven't done Apocalypse yet. I guess that's got to be done.
Yeah, it's 100% why Apocalypse is the villain.
That's why it feels like that.
Yeah. That was probably their entire pitch for this movie.
Well, who haven't we done yet?
Yeah.
They flipped the coin between this and Sinister. It came up wrong.
So there's an alternate universe where we hinted at Apocalypse for like 6 movies and then never got him.
And, you know, I've talked to some folks that have said Sinister, like, it's a good thing they didn't do Sinister. Like thank God they never got there, because he would have gotten really terrible treatment. But I don't know how true that is, because it is possible that this movie is as bad as it is regardless of what story we try to tell, because we're burnt out and we shouldn't have rushed it, and Kinberg's not that great of a writer, and Vaughn leaving was a big problem. Like that probably hurt this more than anything. But it's also possible that we would have told him more. I mean, you said we brought back the X2 writers. I mean, I love that movie. Maybe this was not the story for these people to try to tell, and they might have gotten excited and felt less burnout and gotten gotten more, felt inspired, got more excited, like they did making Days of Future Past, if they had the right material. So if they had done Sinister and that was a thing that they had a cool idea behind it, they got excited about, maybe.
Yeah, well, and I don't know how involved they were because they just have story credits and not writing credits. But I mean,
sure, but that was true of Vaughn in the last movie, and
yeah,
that, as far as I understand it, was plot point to plot point him.
Yeah, no, of course.
And look, she can walk on the air.
She's girl Jesus. She's just on a green screen. There she goes.
I think if you had that ability, it would feel weirder to just try to walk and get a sense of foot placement than just hovering.
Yeah, no, it would definitely feel weird. And is she seeing this mind world, or is she seeing this? Like,
I don't know.
What is happening?
Which apocalyptic future did she see? I'm still a little unsure about that whole thing.
An Apocalypse without his armor looks so dumb. Like, he looks so goofy.
I didn't talk about this earlier. I don't care. Maybe it's because I'm not enjoying this movie, ultimately. Maybe that's the main thing. Although in the theater, I wasn't sure about it. This is the worst orchestration of the X2 theme. And, like it's not terrible. It feels uninspired like everything else. Like, it's trying to be a little different, and it's just, it gets generic. Like, it would have been almost better if it was orchestrated exactly the way it was in X2. Because it's like, well, this is now the X-Men theme. We're always going to use this. And I don't think it should have, because I think this should have gone more its own way. But if this felt like a Singer movie and I loved it, I probably wouldn't be saying that.
That right there is what should have happened to Wolverine in X3. We finally fixed that.
I didn't say this in the review because I thought it might come off hyperbolic, and I'm not sure if I 100% even agree with myself on this, but this is a thought I've had. In places, I kind of feel like I can see in both the score and the editing, Ottman also not wanting to be here and thinking this material is really bad.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, because he's got to look at the movie, obviously, and come up with a soundtrack based on it.
And edit.
Oh, is he editing too?
He edits and scores all of Singer's movies.
Oh, okay.
He's done that going all the way back. And Singer, this was revealing. Singer in the commentary said that Ottman is constantly, like, berating him, and he acted like it was jokingly, but I don't know, about giving him, like, really crappy footage to work with when he's editing.
Yeah, because that doesn't sound like a joke. That's weird he even mentioned it in a commentary.
I mean, I think the man might have slightly lost his mind at the point that he recorded that. It was an uncomfortable thing to sit through, and I recommend it to everyone.
That's great.
So, nobody's a person.
Payoff, yeah.
Moira is also not a person, and not just because she's missing some of her memories. When she gets them back, she's fine with the fact that Xavier did this. She's just like, yeah, I got my memories back.
Cap, it's because they love each other.
Oh. You could have made this a love story. There's an idea.
Yeah.
Because First Class wasn't really a full-on love story. You could have done that. You could have had the love story, right?
Yeah, we're acting right now like it was more of one.
Yeah, I mean, like, you had a kiss at the end, but we played it like the magic kiss at the end of Superman 2. By the way, when I did that list of contrived moments in superhero movies, somebody said that it's not a magic kiss. It's supposed to be, and I think I'd heard this before, but I forgot about it, that it's supposed to be like Superman using his heat vision to, like, slightly lobotomize Lois.
What?
I'm not sure how that makes it better.
But how would he even do that? How
I
would
don't
he
know
where in her brain?
How would he know where to put it? And, like, how would it get through without
her skull?
going through her skull? And that would be, like, super painful. And, like, yeah, it was like, and the comment was like, no Cap is fine, because, like, it was like trying to take up for it, and, like, that sounds horrifying to me.
That makes Superman worse.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something on that. But anyway, I don't mean to get too far off the beaten path, but that reminded me of that.
Well, this scene is just like the Apocalypse after credit scene in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, it's a really clever callback. Mm-hmm.
It's not even shot like that. Like, I guess this shot right here, but it's in reverse. Because you're backing away. It's so stupid.
Okay, we get it. You guys like Rush. Fine. Also in that commentary, they were like, isn't it cool that we used Rush because he runs fast? Because he's rushing.
That's terrible. He should have been playing Iran instead of the Egyptian version of the Storm.
So far. Okay.
That should have been the song.
Okay, but what if that was the song when he's saving the mansion? That'd be crazy.
That would have been way better. Somebody needs to re-edit that.
So I don't know how they got all the material they needed, like, already put together as fully as it was to then just put the house together. That seems like a logistical nightmare to me.
Well, all the material was there, and all those kids were just still standing on the lawn when they got back.
I hate this exchange at the end so much that we just repeated
Take
ourselves from the end of X-Men. And like I said in the rewind, the thing that drives me most crazy about it, besides just butterfly effect and the fact that you wouldn't have exactly the same conversation word for word that you did in another reality in a totally different context, but and other movies have done this too. And also, have you had this thought? Singer himself did that crap all over Superman Returns. But they have this exchange after the thing that they're concerned about happened in this movie. They're like, are you worried about the day that they're gonna come for your children? It's like, I mean, I guess they didn't take the children, but they showed up and they took some of them.
Yeah, Magneto should be like, I wouldn't pity them. They blew up your house.
Actually, when Magneto goes like,
in the background.
What do you do when you wake up to that? And he goes, I thank God for Jean Grey, because she can put the house back together if it happens. This is actually more uncomfortable to me than most of the uncomfortable scenes in this movie. Just her giving that speech and the camera under her, and because I hate her performance so much. And
her speech is terrible.
It's a bad speech. And she's
Forget
like,
everything you learned. This is more now.
just the way she's holding her face is just like, you're
I put more.
you're not students. You're X-Men. It's like, but you can be both. I don't. And then I don't know why I hate this Nightcrawler thing. That just drives me nuts.
He just sneers.
Yeah, he's like, you don't even know what's about to come, and like it's a simulation, and stop it. Like, I forgot you were in this movie, and then you're just like, ah.
No, but he forgot everything he learned and became a beast. That's what he was doing.
So I just edited the 10-minute version of the rewind, and the shot I used when I'm talking about how numb I feel watching this movie is Xavier's facial expression right at the end. That's how I feel like. And this is the only time I've ever heard this theme, and I'm not happy. Oh, this had 2 editors. It wasn't just Ottman. Weird.
Oh, yeah.
Usually I hear, I'm giddy. I'm so stoked. I get to the end of this, and I'm like, I don't even care anymore. Like, forget it. But, you know, it doesn't ruin the movies I love. And it's really easy. And I mean, like, it's easy to say that. You know, people will act like it's really weird for people to get a really bad sequel and for it to hurt the previous movies. It really depends on what we're talking about. Because if you had a franchise that was, like, where the story's not quite over and it's leading to a place... Like, this is not a great movie, but if you really liked Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions absolutely hurts that movie. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about.
Well, it's the original Star Wars movies versus The Force Awakens, right? The original movies aren't affected by the sequels. Force Awakens was a movie I liked, completely hurt by the sequels it got. And I don't
enjoy it anymore because I mean there's still stuff that's fun in that movie, but like I can't imagine all the interesting places we might have gone after that because we didn't do them.
Yeah, that was half of what I liked about that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I was going to say about Days of Future Past is at least that felt like a real send-off, even though they were planning to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so easy to just go, all right, nothing happens after that. Like, or I can imagine anything I want to happens after that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, because it's a nice send-off for those old people, and now we're going to continue with the new. Go from there.
It was just a huge mistake not to hire another director.
No, absolutely, yeah.
But that's not how this works in this country with Hollywood, right? Like what we do is we go, well, that person made us a bunch of money, so we got to milk them for all they're worth. And I don't know whose idea it was to get another one out in 2 years. Like, I don't know if that's at the studio level or if that's Singer wanting another paycheck right away or what it is. Like, there's no telling.
Yeah.
That may not be his fault. I don't know.
Well, and even with your director thing, like, this director steps down and we get the writer of this and, like, X3. And I know he worked on Days of Future Past, too. But, like, it's one thing.
Yeah, but I would love to see the breakdown of, like, who had what ideas. Like, what can you credit Kinberg for? Maybe some great stuff. I don't know. But maybe nothing. It's hard to say. I don't know.
The only thing he did was that train scene. That was it.
I mean, he's worked on things I've liked, so it's hyperbolic to say he must be all around an awful writer. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's also been involved in things that were really bad, and the things that he has been mostly, like, solely responsible for have not been good.
Yeah, and you get stuff, you get like this, you get Dark Phoenix and Fant Four Stick, which he, like, reshot parts of.
I do have to say, this is a phenomenon. I don't know exactly how to even articulate this. This is a phenomenon I've never really seen before, where you had essentially like a 4-movie franchise where it does what feels like a bad third movie twice. Because Dark Phoenix is not the third of a trilogy, but in a lot of ways it feels like it because it has so much in common with X3, just like this does. And then, like Blade Trinity, it brings in the writer of the other movies to direct, and he does a terrible job.
Yeah.
It's a really weird situation.
Well, my favorite between this and that one is he has no idea what to do with Magneto in either. Like in this one, it's like, oh, he's got a family now, and in the next one, it's like, oh, he has Genosha now.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, why?
It's and honestly, I always wanted to see that. I actually forgot that was in that movie. I always wanted to see that. It's the way they did it wasn't great.
No, it's that. What do we do with Magneto? We haven't done this yet.
But he could have had Asteroid M at the beginning of this movie. It actually would have been better.
Yeah.
Or Genosha or whatever, but like he could have been off of,
something, yeah.
And also, a lot of it is that like you can make anything work thing. Like inherently, giving him a family and letting him go off and live a life is not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's just that it doesn't work out, so it ultimately feels like they had no idea.
Well, it's not like they let him keep his family. Like, what if he had a family through the whole thing? You try to tell a story somehow with that. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just saying.
He's got Scarlet Witch as his daughter, and he's running around.
I always say I don't want to rewrite movies, but then you'll get things like this where, even at the conceptual level, there's nothing super interesting there, except for the religious stuff with Magneto with Apocalypse, which I talked about quite a bit in the Rewind. We didn't bring up hardly at all here because it's not really in the movie.
Yeah, and I wish they did a lot more with him. Look at how he learns everything he knows about the modern day with through the TV. We don't do anything with that.
I meant earlier to ask you to talk about that. That's a fun idea.
Yeah. Yeah, because it just feels like, okay, we need him to know everything. He learns it through TV, but it's not going to affect him in any way.
Yeah, what if he used the TV to take over the world, and we used that to make it a reason to actually be set in the 80s? Because this does not have to be in the time period it is. Dark Phoenix is worse about that. I mean, I forget that whole movie we're supposed to be in the 90s, but...
Yeah, like this, you get rushed constantly. I don't think you get anything in Dark Phoenix.
And again, if they'd left in the stuff at the mall, there's actually some really neat set building there.
Mm-hmm. When I remember they had, I don't know if you remember this, all that Jubilee stuff that they shot, that they released online, where it was like shot like an 80s commercial or something.
I don't remember that. Or maybe I never saw it, I don't know.
Yeah, they released a bunch of stuff like that. They did a lot more with that Jubilee actress, and none of it's in the movie.
It sucks because I like her. I mean, she doesn't get much to do, but what's there, and I usually really dislike that character. I actually could have done with some more of that character.
Yeah, because, I didn't see this in the theater. I saw it afterwards. So there was so much with her just in background material that when I went to see it, it was like, this is it? Like, I thought she was a big character in this movie.
No, and why on earth? I mean, this is about the next movie. We'll get there eventually, but I don't understand why you wouldn't have geared Dark Phoenix more toward the tone and the characters of the cartoon show, especially if you're going to set it in 92. So you'd think Jubilee would be a big part of that, and it would have been cooler to introduce her there.
Is she in that movie at all?
I think she's in there somewhere, but maybe not. I've only seen that movie one time, and it didn't stick with me at all.
Yeah. No, I was tuning out by the climax when I watched it.
I forgot Genosha was there. I remember the bat phone. That's what I remember.
Oh, it's a good thing. I guess a bad thing. Nobody cleaned up these bodies.
I have nothing to say about this. It sets up X6 the first time, and then we do it 2 more times.
Yep. Sinister's coming, guys. Just wait.
I imagine that'll be the first thing they do at MCU. I'll be shocked if Sinister is not in that first movie.
That's what I want, yeah. Because at this point, we've done so much with Magneto, I feel like making him the first villain would just be repeating yourself. I don't know.
I also think
Depends what they did.
Unless they decide to do stuff with the Fox franchise, because who knows what Feige's planning. Because I didn't think that was possible, but it maybe he wanted Hugh Jackman in one of those. So I don't know. But it could end up being the same situation as like Green Goblin and stuff from Spider-Man, where we just try to avoid anything that was in these. But you can't avoid everything, because we've done nearly every character anybody's heard of in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're gonna have that mentality with the X-Men, but who knows?
I just hope it's a real full-on reboot in tone and everything.
I think it will be. I think
there's a real cool style, like more stylized, and I realize that that's a world that feels sort of more like ours, but like there's some real cool comic booky stylized stuff you could do that we've just not gotten to, that we danced around.
And I'm waiting for the 90s theme to show up as an orchestral theme, like the Spider-Man one did.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
That's gotta happen, right?
Yeah, but I was kind of hoping we would do it with the 92 movie.
And I saw...
With Dark Phoenix.
When that movie came out, I saw somebody made a fan edit of that, and they posted it on YouTube. And I was like, oh my god, they actually did it. They beat Marvel to it. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, I'm just dumb.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, well, and I've always liked... One of the reasons I love the John Ottman theme so much is it's keeping that theme in mind. It's dancing around it.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. They're pretty... Well, they're both just awesome themes alone, but they are pretty similar.
He's using some of the same note progressions and stuff, but... Well, anyway, thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with another Rewind real soon. And like I said, every few Rewinds, I'll go back to one of the things I've done recently and look at it with like a fine-tooth comb while watching the film for you. And Austin, come back anytime, man. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, it wasn't fun because it was Apocalypse. But it was fun hanging out.
It's fun talking to you. I kind of 4 times in a couple weeks. I kind of hope I never have to sit through this again. All right, well, thanks again, folks. I'll see you again next time. I was Captain Logan, and this was The Day Ghost.
See ya, everybody.
Later, folks.